3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the play show, yet not overly ostentatious studios of CBS Sports Radio here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to a Tuesday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all the great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course streaming on YouTube. 855-212-4CBS is the number to jump on in. 855-212-4227. You can always interact with me on the good old cesspool of Twitter or on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. Kadri Ismail is going to stop by at 5:20 p.m. Eastern, 2:20 p.m. Pacific. And we have a Moist Mike and also Carlos with a K, Carlos Ortiz, rocking and rolling with us all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Hope everyone had a great holiday season. Hope everyone had a Merry Christmas yesterday. And let's just all be transparent right out of the gate. We're all feeling hazy today, right? We're all in a food coma today. The last 2 days, I ate like a fat pig. It was just really crazy how much food I consumed in the last 48 hours. So Sunday, I worked with Carlos. I get off of Ion Football at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. I take the train out to my folks' place, and it's about an hour train ride. So my mom, dad, they pick me up at the train station, and my mom's like, let's go see the Christmas lights. And I go, Ma, I love you. As much as I want to see the Christmas lights, I am so hungry. Because during Ion Football, which is an 8-hour marathon, I really only consume one meal during that, and it's usually something light, like maybe a bagel with some egg whites or just a bagel with butter. And I wait to feast when I get home because when you're doing a show for 8 hours and you eat all that food, it's just impossible to concentrate and impossible to formulate a sentence. So I was starving, and my mom wasn't too thrilled that we didn't get to go see the Christmas lights, but she did make a delicious meal as she had some short ribs, which were just unbelievable. I'm a big fan of short ribs. So had a very good meal on Sunday night, had a little dessert. There were some cookies that were made up by mom as well. And then yesterday, it was just football, family, and food. And that's what it was. And I always have this take about football watching food, and there's so many different types of food that you could have with football, whether it's Italian, whether it's barbecue. You could sit there and grill until the cows come home. But there's always something about Chinese food with football. Like when I think of Shaq and Kobe, right, a once elite, great, all-time great duo, Scotty and MJ, I also think like Chinese food and football. And I sat there for the first game, then the second game, and we saw, right, the Chiefs lose to the Raiders, then the Eagles beat the Giants, but it wasn't all that impressive, and there's issues with the Eagles. We'll get to them later. And then the Monday night game was great anticipation. It was supposed to be this heavyweight fight. It was supposed to be this great game right down to the wire. And then the Ravens just opened up a can of whoop ass on the San Francisco 49ers. And I needed that last game to be a good game because I was already just in the food coma. And I'm sitting on the couch and I was doing like the old man thing on the couch where your eyes start to fall asleep and then someone changes the channel. I'm watching that. What are we doing? But we just ate a ridiculous amount of Chinese food last night. The wonton soup to start. Boneless spare ribs. We had an egg roll. There's nothing like a good egg roll, a pork egg roll too. We had some dumplings. Then we had some Singapore noodles. We had some chow mein. There was General Tso's chicken. Like it just did not stop. Fried rice, white rice. It just never ended with the Chinese food last night. So my alarm went off this morning and I had to get up, take the train back into the city, stop by my apartment, shower, and look like somewhat of a human being to get in here and do a radio show. And when I walk around these studios today, and when I walk around this office that has, 5 or 6 radio stations and then us, a network here at CBS Sports Radio, I think I could count on one hand how many people are here. Where it's Santer, it's Carlos, it's me, it's Pat Boyle, and then Marash is like down the hall. And that's about it. So I'm sitting here saying to myself, yeah, it's the right thing. You come on in, you work, you're in the sports industry. You had a big weekend of football. You got the college football playoff games coming up this weekend. And then I look at the program schedule, and I think it's just out of the regular Monday through Friday lineup this week, it's myself and Amy Lawrence working. And congratulations to Amy, who I think it was 2-3 weeks ago got married, and she's finally getting back into the swing of things. So congratulations to A-Law. So I'm sitting here, and I feel like a moron today when we open up this show. I feel as if, and Carlos Ortiz is pointing and laughing at me, you're still here as well, dummy. So what are you laughing at?
I have no choice.
Yeah. So, yeah, I had one off day remaining. I guess I'm going to lose it because it wipes away at the beginning of the new year, and that's this upcoming weekend. And I almost feel as if I am Will Smith in the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air when everyone moves out of the house and all the furniture gets stolen, all that, and I'm sitting there in the living room, and I got no one else here. So it's going to be a very lonely week, but this is what we do. We do a sports talk radio program because we have a great, passionate, loyal listening audience, and they expect us to be here this week in a off time for most. It is a working time the way that I look at it because the football games only mean so much more. When it's either in college, you're right, it means the ultimate, and then for the NFL, it just keeps on picking up in intensity. So I'm here today. I'm going to be talking today. My brain, though, is probably functioning and I would say about 65%. So it's still better than a lot of other things you're going to watch and listen to in the next week or so. So be patient with us. Be bearing. And also be caring with us as well as we try to fight through all that just disgusting food that we ate in the last 24 hours. So, all righty, let's get to the game from yesterday. I was able to watch most of it. The only time I missed any part of the game was when I was starting to doze off, and then I smacked myself across the face and said, wake up, you got a job to do. You got people to talk to tomorrow. You got to be all engaged on the Ravens and the 49ers. I'm thrilled today. I am thrilled today because of one reason and one reason only. Today is a day that Lamar Jackson is going to get universal praise. And Lamar Jackson, it's always annoyed me as a Lamar Jackson supporter whenever you had Bill Polian say those ridiculous things. You know, Lamar won a Heisman. Just because you won a Heisman doesn't mean that you're going to be this great rock star quarterback in the NFL. But for Bill Polian to say whatever it was, he's got to be a running back or he's got to be a wide receiver, I thought that was the definition of jackassery. But that was really the start of the Lamar Jackson criticism. And even when Lamar Jackson is playing at this great level, there are people that still decide to talk about what Lamar can't do rather than what Lamar can do and what Lamar Jackson is doing. And he won a unanimous MVP, his first true year as a starter. The guy has been really damn good as a quarterback. And for whatever the reasons are, Lamar just doesn't get that praise as if he's a top 5 quarterback in the league. And now today, you're not going to hear that from anybody because even though his stats aren't as great as the first time he won the MVP, you see the impact. And Bill Belichick, he once said stats are for losers, and people laugh at that because now we live in a world where it's stats. It's the truest thing that's ever said. Because sometimes you could see stats in a game, and you could see stats from a player, and they're either empty or the team was down a lot, and then they're stat padding. But when you have consistently watched Lamar Jackson this year, he's by far and away the most important person on that team, but also he's the most valuable player in the NFL. And I've said this for years when it comes to Lamar. When are they going to get him a great bona fide number one option at the wide receiver position? Like we've seen Tua Tagovailoa in Miami get Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. We've seen Jalen Hurts get A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. We've seen Josh Allen get Stephon Diggs. And the Ravens have tried, but Rashawn Bateman can't stay healthy. Marquise Hollywood-Brown was never a one, but they traded him. Zay Flowers looks like he could be really good, but he's a rookie. There's going to be some ups and downs. You get Odell Beckham Jr. this offseason, but Odell Beckham Jr., he's still a fine player, but he's nowhere close to being the great player that he once was. And really his best options were Mark Andrews and J.K. Dobbins. And Mark Andrews got hurt this year, and J.K. Dobbins unfortunately has had his career just ruined and slowed down because he always gets decimated with injuries. And you watch Lamar week in and week out, and all he does is extend plays. He makes ridiculous jaw-dropping plays, and then he wins. And I know there's going to be a ton of people that are going to tell me, Zach, you say he wins, but the guy only has one playoff victory. Oh, the guy has never got to a Super Bowl. Do we forget some all-time great quarterbacks that struggled early on in their postseason career? Peyton Manning lost a lot of games before he won a Super Bowl. John Elway didn't win a Super Bowl, and I know he won 2, but they were at the end of his career. So I know we now live in a society where it's you either win a Super Bowl and you're praised, or you don't get to a Super Bowl, you lose in the playoffs, and then people try to make it out as if you suck. Lamar Jackson has been a great quarterback for a long time. And the only reason why people doubt him is because the last 2 years, he hasn't been able to stay healthy. But right now, he's healthy. And you look across that offense, tell me the other great players that are on that offense. You can't. They don't have a great running back. They don't have a great tight end right now. And they have a good wide receiver or two, but they don't have great wide receivers. So what Lamar is doing right now is he's giving anyone that's doubted him before the draft, during the draft, after he's won a unanimous MVP, after he's become one of the more electrifying players in the NFL, he's giving you a middle finger. And I love it. And it's crazy to me This guy was available in the offseason. All you had to do was give a contract offer and be willing to lose 2 first-round picks if the Ravens didn't match it. And no one even gave him an offer. Like, if I was a GM, I would just, even if I didn't want to sign him, I would give some ridiculous offer, and you knew that the Ravens were going to have to match it anyway. Because there was no way the Ravens were going to actually let him walk. Even though they appeared that they were fine with letting someone do it, it's different in appearing and bluffing that you were going to let Lamar Jackson walk off the door and then actually let him walk out the door. Because I get it. They have a great coach. They have a great defense that had Brock Purdy throw 4 interceptions last night. Rest in peace to the Brock Purdy MVP push. And that defense is phenomenal, but that team goes as Lamar goes. It doesn't mean that there's not other essential pieces on that team, but the most valuable player on that team and the most valuable player in the NFL for this year of 2023 is Lamar Jackson. And I don't want to hear a damn thing today about what you think he can't do. How about we start talking about what he has done, what he can do, and what he will continue to do? Because this dude is so easy to root for. He's one of the more electrifying players in the league, and he is awesome. And the only thing that slows him down are injuries. And I wish him nothing but the best. I wish him only good health. And it would really be something this year if the Ravens got to the Super Bowl and we had to praise Lamar Jackson for the 2 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl, and then we had to praise him for the entire offseason as a Super Bowl champion. Because there's pressure on the Ravens. The AFC is wide open, and guess what? They're the lead dog. And they just went into Santa Clara against the best team in the NFL, and they made the best team in the NFL look like they didn't even belong in the same field as them. So the Ravens deserve the praise that they're getting right now. But if you're someone that's still doubting Lamar or is skeptical of Lamar, I just want to know why. Because it doesn't register with me. Because we've seen a lot of guys get into this league, put up big stats, win some accolades, and really have exceeded expectations, and they get praise. But for whatever the reason it is with Lamar, when those other guys had playoff shortcomings, it was, it's eventually time. But for Lamar Jackson, it's, he'll never win a big game. He'll never win a Super Bowl. And it reminds me just identical of the way that we talked about Giannis Antetokounmpo in the NBA years ago. Giannis won 2 MVPs. They didn't get the job done in the postseason. And it was, Giannis, because he's not the greatest shooter in the world. Well, guess what? He'll never win a championship. He'll never do so in Milwaukee. And with Lamar, it's because he's not your ideal, prototypical passing quarterback. He'll never get the job done. It's baloney. It's BS. You can't tell me that as long as Lamar is healthy, and that's a different conversation, but as long as he's healthy, you can't tell me he doesn't have a shot to win a Super Bowl for the next 5 to 10 years. He is that dominant of a player. And he has never, ever, ever had a true number 1 wide receiver. And all this guy does is put the team on his back and continues to just prove people wrong day after day, month after month, and year after year. And I love it. The dude's a top 5 quarterback. The dude's the MVP of the league this year. The dude is a 2-time MVP. And since my team won't be in the dance, even though they're winning too many games as of late and they're screwing up the tank, it's very easy to root for Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. All right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio, 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. How do you view Lamar Jackson? Right now, I view him as the most valuable player in the NFL. Then you get to the flip side of the 49ers. I still think the 49ers are a heck of a team. I still trust them the most in the NFC. But last night reminds you when, I don't know, there were shows or there was talk show hosts. Oh, wait, it was us. It was me that was saying 49ers are the field. And I went against my rule where I said 99.9% of the time, I always take the field, especially in a single elimination sport. Why, maybe we should go back to the field. When last week I was spewing the 49ers. Hey, they are still dominant. They are still a great team. But the Ravens showed you last night, the NFL is as open as I could ever imagine it this year. Because there's not a lot of great teams. Really, the only 2 great teams I've seen this year in the NFL are the Ravens and the 49ers. And maybe this will be a different outcome. Maybe we'll see them again in February. I hope we see them again in February because those are the 2 best teams in the NFL. And we'll see from now until then who's going to be able to disrupt some of the magic in the postseason, as I can't wait for the NFL postseason from the wild card round to the divisional round, conference championship weekend, and then with it concluding in the Super Bowl. All righty, we'll take a break. When we come on back, are you back in on the Dolphins? And what are your thoughts on the drama? Dallas choking the Cowboys. Man, I feel so bad for those cockroach Cowboys fans. It's Christmas. It's supposed to be a jolly time of the year. We're getting ready for 2024, and it's the same old crap, even though we're getting ready to go to a new year. It's the same old crap with your football team. Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. 30 seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
You're basically saying that the officiating is the reason why you lost the game. And if that's the case, then Dak is lost. And Dak doesn't understand reality. Because Dak's the reason why they lost the game. Mike McCarthy's the reason why they lost the game. The bad offensive line play. Kellen Moore's stupid play calling. Those are the reasons, not the officials, why the Dallas stinking Cowboys lost the game. There is no way you could blame officiating on that one.
Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Oh, what a wonderful time of the year it is. So the Dallas Cowboys 3 weeks ago were like the talk of the league. So many people were trying to issue mea culpas with the Dallas Cowboys because of how much we make fun of them, how much we just speak the truth about them, and how realistic we are that they are the definition of just a good team, but not a great team. And come the big moments, they crumble. And then they beat up on a bunch of crappy teams, then give them credit, right? They found a way to make up for a loss that they had in Philadelphia, and they beat the snot out of the Philadelphia Eagles when they had that rematch in Dallas. And then once that happened, it was, oh, maybe the Cowboys are different. Maybe Dak's going to win the MVP of the league this year. Maybe he's going to win playoff games. Look at the talent that he has with CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks and Michael Gallup and Tony Pollard. And then defensively, oh, this is a great defense. This is an unbelievable defense. You have Stephon Gilmore, former defensive player of the year. Micah Parsons is an absolute stud. And you have all this talk. McCarthy, he's underappreciated, which he is. And he's won a Super Bowl. But there's all this talk about the Cowboys, and through all of it, I laughed. I said, because you know it and I know it, in the playoffs, and this is where I was wrong. I said, in the playoffs, the drama Dallas choking Cowboys would reappear. We didn't even get to the postseason yet. And all that positive momentum, all of that just really nonsense and hogwash, and really just a joke that we heard for about a month from Cowboys fans goes right out the window. And it went right out the window after their complete and utter no-show up against the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. And then I sat here on Sunday, and I felt like I was on an island because so many people were picking the Cowboys up against the Dolphins. We had 3 betting experts, which is sometimes an oxymoron, but they are betting experts, and they're very good at what they do for a living. And they're usually more right than we are in the gambling world. I'm not going to sit here and toot my own horn about my gambling picks because, yeah, I had a great parlay over the weekend that won me $500-600, but with my show picks, yikes, usually not good. But I had 3 betting experts all be in on the Dallas Cowboys to bounce back and defeat the Miami Dolphins. And I sat there, I just asked why. Like, that game was a coin flip, and I trusted the home team more in the Miami Dolphins. And then I also said I would lean more Tua than Dak. Now, to Dak's credit, Dak played well in the game. Dak is not the reason why the Dallas Cowboys lost to the Miami Dolphins. Dak led that team down the field. He made a big third down throw. He got the ball in the end zone, and he gave them the lead. And then that great defense, which is 2 defenses I'm really sick and tired about calling great. It's the New York Jets defense, which they are a very good defense. I would like to see what they would do if they actually had a quarterback because it would alleviate some of the problems that the Jets defense has. And then also the Dallas Cowboys. Like, those 2 defenses have been talked about at times this year as if they are the 85 Bears, as if they're the Steel Curtain, the early 2000 Ravens, and then the Legion of Boom. Like, let's pump the brakes And I think you guys have realized this about me. My biggest gripe and the biggest problem I have when people refer to just good defenses or good teams or good players as great players, I am extremely strict on calling a player great. Like if I call a player great, I have the utmost respect for them. But sometimes I'll call someone good and people are like, oh, that's offensive. Or, oh, you're trashing them. No, just not everyone in the world is either the GOAT, the greatest of all time, or the worst of all time. There are different sectors. There's different levels. When we look at this, there are bad players. There are average players. There are above average players. There are good players. There are very good players. There are very good teams. And then there are great teams and great players. And it's amazing to me how we heard a lot of people call the Cowboys great. And that supposedly great defense folded and got just absolutely exposed by Tua, the run game. Jeff Wilson Jr. had some nice carries late as they were just rotating backs in with the Miami Dolphins. And then Jason Sanders had a remarkable game. He did, and he kicked the game-winning field goal. So 3 weeks ago it was, oh, look how great the Cowboys are. Oh, the Cowboys are different. And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, am I insane? Like, do I get a different TV feed than everybody else? Sure, the Cowboys were impressive. But it doesn't mean I was ready to throw them into the party, even in a year where it's wide open in the NFL, where all of a sudden I would sit back and go, oh, yeah, this is why they're going to go. They're playing to a level where they should go to a Super Bowl where they haven't been since 1995 or an NFC Championship game since the 1995 season. And I never thought that was going to happen. And the last 2 weeks, it just shows me either the entire team doesn't show up, or when the defense is on, the offense isn't, or what we saw on Sunday, the offense was on, and the defense with the game on the line didn't show up. They just don't get on the same page. The only time they get on the same page is when they no-show. That's the only time they get on the same page. But you never see the offense and the defense clicking up against a great team or in a big spot. And that was an opportunity for Dallas to have people like me shut up and to have me be quiet until you get exposed in the playoffs by being able to bounce back after a complete and utter no-show up against the Bills. You almost had the game won. But I've been hearing about the Cowboys have been almost close for 20-something years. So just stop. I don't want to hear another positive word about the Dallas Cowboys until they're in an NFC title game. Because until then, we're a bunch of fools. And I say this knowing that there's probably only one great team in the NFC, and that's the 49ers, and they just got the crap kicked out of them going up against the Baltimore Ravens the other night. But still in the NFC, I trust the 49ers the most. The Eagles have chemistry problems. We'll get to that coming up later. The Lions are a really good team. But I think they're different when they are home compared to when they have to go outside of their building and it's actually in an outdoor game. Like, you look around the NFC, the Rams are getting hot. I'll tell you, the Rams are going to be a tricky out. They get in the playoffs, they are going to be one tough out, the LA Rams. But I could see it now. The Cowboys will be going up against the NFC South champion in all likelihood. They'll be probably playing Tampa Bay. You know, they could probably beat Tampa Bay. They probably should beat Tampa Bay. And then they will either be in Philadelphia, they'll be in Detroit, they'll be in Santa Clara, and whoever they have to go up against, they'll fold. Because this team doesn't put consistently good efforts together enough to go win 3 playoff games. And 3 playoff games that are all going to have to be on the road. And even if somehow, some way, they find a way to winning the wild card round and winning the divisional round, you know, right when they start to think, oh, the Cowboys are going to the Super Bowl, here they come, you know the drama Dallas choking Cowboys will show up in the NFC Championship game. And they will not win, and they will not go to the Super Bowl. So Dallas fans, Merry Christmas. You're stuck on being just a good team. You're not a great team. And that was reiterated to us the last 2 weeks. No show against the Bills. And then your offense up, Dak in a big moment. Here he comes. Here comes the Cowboys. How about them Cowboys? And then your defense lets you down. It just never comes together for the drama Dallas choking Cowboys. It's amazing. And I was laughing watching that game. I really was. You know what? I actually may start rooting for the Cowboys. I maybe need to start to see the Cowboys turn it around because this act is getting old. It's actually not fun when we see the same story over and over and over again. And if you think that was a heartfelt comment, man, I got a nice bridge for you to sell to you coming up in about 30, 35 minutes. Now, on the other side, I got to give credit to Miami because here was my take about Miami all throughout the year. I picked them to win the AFC East before the year. I still think Buffalo can win the AFC East and maybe make my prediction end up being wrong. You know the Dolphins, though, are in the playoffs. We'll see if they'll end up winning the AFC East. They got a big game coming up this week, Sunday, 1 o'clock. How the heck is this game? Sunday, 1 o'clock. It's the Miami Dolphins at the Baltimore Ravens. So that has enormous playoff implications for the number 1 seed and also inside the AFC East as Buffalo it wants to see Miami go down and then have that final game of the season mean something in Miami where it would be win and you end up getting the AFC East division championship if the Dolphins lose this weekend to the Baltimore Ravens. But in the NFC, I still do believe even after that loss that the 49ers are the best team. In the AFC, the Ravens are the best team. And I believe in the Baltimore Ravens and I believe in Lamar Jackson. But the AFC, still in some regards, and this may sound backwards after what happened last night, it appears to be just a little bit more open than the NFC. Because I would think right now, like those second-tier teams in the AFC, when, let's say, in the AFC, the best team is the Ravens, the NFC, the best team is the 49ers. Those second-tier teams, when we talk about Miami, even though Kansas City looks shot, they still have Mahomes, and you do have the surging Buffalo Bills, even though it hasn't always looked clean throughout the entirety of the season, I still trust them more than a Lions team outside of their own building, a Cowboys team who always chokes, and an Eagles team that has severe, and I mean severe, chemistry problems. And what Miami needed, they needed that win up against the Cowboys because all their big games this year were on the road, and they weren't able to get the job done. Now, they're going to have to go on the road, maybe not after this weekend, and go win a big playoff game. Potentially. They're going to have to go on the road and win a big playoff game. But with Miami's offense, especially in the year of 2023, an offensive team may be able to get you carried to a Super Bowl. And their defense, it did play better. And I think they're starting to figure it out without Jalen Phillips, which is an enormous loss for them. But that Dolphins team, I thought that their ceiling would just be winning the AFC East and maybe a playoff game this year. They are a team that can go to the Super Bowl. In the short list of Super Bowl contenders this year, and there's not many on that list, they would now be in on that list, but health still scares the crap out of me with that team. Tua's not got hurt this year, but Jalen Waddle now dealing with an injury. Looks like he's going to be done for the regular season, probably will come back for the playoffs. We know that Tyreek Hill just came back from an injury. Raheem Mostert got banged up, but then came back in. I just hope that team ends up staying healthy because that was a late season, much needed victory for the Miami Dolphins, and it maybe changes the outlook of them as them and the Cowboys are very similar, and the Dolphins showed you that they were better than the Cowboys. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Let me just take Tony here in Toronto who wants to chime in on my conversation earlier in the hour to open up the show about Lamar Jackson. I said that a lot of people need to say sorry to Lamar. Lamar right now is the best player in the NFL. He's playing like he's the best player in the NFL, and he's going to win the MVP award this season. Let's go to Tony. Tony, what's happening?
Hey, Merry Christmas, buddy.
Yep, you too. What do you got?
Thank you. About Lamar, you know what? He's a talented guy. Wish him all the best. But if I was an owner or a group of guys on the team, I wouldn't want him on my team.
Why?
And the reason is this. We're going to use Patrick Mahomes as the example of what I do want on my team.
Okay.
You remember with the busted-up leg and whatever, Andy Reid had a time you couldn't keep him off the field. You wanted to be there with teammates and whatever. Lamar, he painted the picture to me. He's looking out for himself.
You're talking about last year when he wasn't with the team, when he was hurt?
Absolutely. And when people tell me this nonsense.
Well, Tony, you don't think those guys play hard for Lamar Jackson in Baltimore? Did you see them last night walking off the field with Lamar?
You know what? It's irrelevant. What I'm saying is that
but it's not irrelevant. It's not relevant to your point, but to the overall conversation and wanting Lamar or not, you can't say that's irrelevant. This guy's won. He's on his way to winning 2 MVPs in this league. He's still a young player.
You're telling me that if you're a lineman, an offensive lineman, and you got a guy like Mahomes or any other player on the team that shows what he wants to do for the team, you're not going to have his back 100% of the time?
And Tony, what happens if you take Lamar Jackson off the Baltimore Ravens? Then what happens to that team?
Let
they
me
suck.
finish my point, please. Let me finish
Well,
my
your point doesn't
please.
make any sense.
No, maybe you don't, because you don't want to listen. Let me say my point, please. That's why you have the show, to hear somebody else's opinion.
Well, yeah, it makes sense. Make a good point. It's not a waiting room.
All right. If you're a lineman and you know that Lamar didn't want to play for the team, he wanted to be traded, doesn't show up to show his protest for a playoff game when he says his leg hurt. Buddy, they have a wheelchair that you can sit in. You could take a bus. You don't have to fly. All of this stuff. He didn't want to be there. You know what? If I'm one of those guys playing, I don't want Lamar.
So how many quarterbacks would you rather have in the NFL over Lamar?
Me?
Yeah. No. Who else am I talking to? You. How many other quarterbacks would you rather have over Lamar?
7 or 8 guys.
Okay, name them. Who are the 7 and 8 guys? Let's have this conversation.
Okay. Patrick Mahomes.
I'll give you that one.
Allen.
Yep. Okay.
Burrows.
Burrows or Burrow? Which one?
Burrow.
Okay, Joe Burrow. Gotcha. I didn't know who Burrows was. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm sorry. How do you call your name again? How do you say your name?
I don't know. You're calling the show. You should know my name, right?
No. I know it. I'm being sarcastic like you are.
Okay. Continue.
Okay.
You had 3. Come on.
I take Rodgers.
Wait, so hold on. You think Lamar is selfish, but Rodgers isn't selfish.
You know what? I know what I'm dealing with him.
And I know what I'm dealing with Lamar Jackson. He's an MVP, a unanimous MVP, and the guy's still young. Tony, I don't even want to hear the other 4 or 5 names because it was just like stuttering. Oh, this guy, that guy. Give me a break. Just say you don't like Lamar. But because he wasn't with the team entirely last year when he was dealing with an injury, and I'm not saying I even love that, you wouldn't want him on the team? You think his teammates are dissatisfied with Lamar Jackson this year? Give me a break. That team would suck without Lamar. They would suck. What a joke. And that's the problem. For whatever reason, people just can't say, man, Lamar's playing great, Lamar's playing awesome, and this dude's a top 5 quarterback in the sport. And he's going to win the MVP again. And it's crazy to me. The guy's going to win 2 MVPs, and you got idiots like Tony call it in, who was probably about to tell me what he'd rather have Jared Goff than Lamar Jackson. Ay, ay, ay. What a joke. And how many teams do you think regret not giving a big-time offer to Lamar to at least have the Baltimore Ravens say no? Or say, yeah, we'll match that. And we don't want your 2 first-round picks. Come on. You got to argue better than that. It is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We'll take a break. When we come on back, the Eagles have big problems, and I am worried. Update time first. Here is a hard hat guy, the great Pat Boyle.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
All right, Zach, we're sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Progressive makes bundling easy and affordable. Get a multi-policy discount by combining your motorcycle, RV, boat, ATV, and more. All your protection in one place. Bundle and save at Progressive.com. After last night's beating at the hands of the Baltimore Ravens and now likely MVP Lamar Jackson, 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan addressed the media and expressed confidence that QB Brock Purdy would be fine to play in Sunday's game against the Commanders. After throwing 4 interceptions, Purdy re-aggravated the neck stinger injury that he initially suffered in Week 15, leaving the game as Sam Darnold came in and made the final minutes of the game competitive. The 49ers still control their own destiny to the number 1 seed in the NFC if they beat the Commanders and the Rams in the final 2 weeks. Meanwhile, crushing news for Vikings fans with their playoff hopes dwindling after back-to-back heartbreaking losses to the Bengals and Lions. Now the worst has been confirmed with star tight end T.J. Hawkinson. He's out for the year with a torn ACL and MCL. Finally, bowl season has resumed today with 3 games. Right now, the Quick Lane Bowl in Detroit is approaching halftime. Minnesota is now trailing Bowling Green. The Falcons have a 10-9 lead at the half. I'm Pat Boyle.
Hey, it's Amy Lawrence. Be sure to listen to CBS Sports Radio at home. Just ask Alexa to play CBS Sports Radio.
Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
The Defensive Player of the Week is sponsored by the Navy Federal Credit Union, who proudly serves the Armed Forces, DOD, veterans, and their families. Their members are the mission. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. This week, it's the Raven safety, who is just a stud out of Notre Dame, Kyle Hamilton. I remember when he got drafted, and I go, of course the Ravens land just like a Swiss Army knife type of player who's just phenomenal. And he picked off Brock Purdy twice in the first half as Baltimore tallied 5 total interceptions in their 33-19 win over the Niners. We will get into the Philadelphia Eagles, who won yesterday, but you don't feel great about the Eagles. They are 11-4. I'll tell you what's cooking in their locker room in just a second. But a lot of conversation about the NFL MVP and also my support for Lamar Jackson, where for some reason Lamar keeps on being a great player, keeps on providing jaw-dropping plays, and there's always just a section of critics, haters, whatever you want to call them, that never give this guy the credit he deserves because he doesn't have a Super Bowl yet. And the guy still has so much more career to go. And we're saying he can't do this, he can't do this, he won't do this, he'll never do this. And we never just praise Lamar for what he's done so far, which there's a lot of teams right now, and they had their chances to get him this year. Now, I do believe a lot of people thought they weren't just going to give him an offer because they knew that the Ravens were going to match, and maybe they didn't want to disrupt their current situation, but there's a lot of teams that would rather have Lamar Jackson. Just to Tony in Toronto's point, who he called up and didn't really have a point, if he's critical of Lamar, and he said he doesn't want Lamar on his team, I just realized this. His math didn't really add up because he said he could name 7 or 8 guys that he'd rather have over Lamar. All right, there's 32 teams in the league, so you still view the guy as a top 10 quarterback. There are a lot of people that would like to have a top 10 quarterback in this league, and that came from someone who was a hater in Tony in Toronto. Let's go to Jordan in Calgary. Next up on CBS Sports Radio with Zach Gelb. Jordan, what's happening?
So I know you're going to call me crazy, but honestly, I believe Josh Allen is the MVP of the NFL season. And the reason I believe that is
Are you a Bills fan, just wondering?
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm a Seahawks fan.
Gotcha.
So the reason I'm going to say Josh Allen is the MVP is because he leads the NFL in touchdowns. That's one. Number 2, he has one of the lowest turnover-worthy play rates out of any of the quarterbacks in the NFL.
He has like 15 interceptions this year, though. Whoa.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, he also has like 15 interceptions this year. I love Josh Allen. My take is 3 weeks ago, before anyone said it, the Bills go to the Super Bowl. But when your team has been average for most of the season and now we're just getting hot, it's tough for me to call him the MVP, Jordan.
But, okay, wait. I understand that the turnovers look high, but according to PFF...
Oh, stop.
Wait, no, you gotta.
I like PFF, but you gotta take everything they say with a grain of salt. There's sometimes I watch someone play great and they tell me they're not even a top 10 player at their position each and every week.
But his turnover-worthy plays have been severely cut down from what it has been in the past. So, in other words, let's just say like maybe Russell Wilson throws like 3 passes that should have been intercepted in that game. Not one of them got picked off. So then now you're going to sit here and say and then let's say Josh Allen throws 1 turnover worthy play, and then he gets 2 passes that are picked off. So now are you going to tell me that Russell Wilson protected the ball better or Josh Allen protected the ball better?
Jordan, to be clear, like you could have an argument for Josh Allen, but when we start using PFF and we start throwing these stats and let's just call it for what it is. Josh Allen has salvaged this season. Josh Allen, if you ask me, would I rather have Josh Allen over Lamar Jackson? I would. I would rather have Josh Allen over Lamar Jackson. I just supported Lamar Jackson for the last 40 minutes. But when it comes to the MVP conversation, there's a case to be made for Josh Allen, but Lamar Jackson has a better case. Because Lamar Jackson this year has been the better quarterback from start to finish. Now, the Bills, here's a hot take, would be screwed without Josh Allen. And Josh Allen is a phenomenal quarterback. But when your team for most of the year was 500 and now they're getting hot, you may end up going to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl this year. but I can't make the case that you should be the guy to win the MVP. You can maybe make a case, but not the case. Let's go to Jeff in Pittsburgh. Is this my main man, Jeff?
Hey, happy holidays. Season's greetings, my man.
Jeff, you're the person I think of. And I only got 2 minutes here, but when I think of holiday spirit, there's nobody else that I think is better than Jeff in Pittsburgh.
Oh, yeah, I definitely indulge in the spirits. Hey, man, these last couple callers might make even me seem like a genius, huh?
And that's tough to do, Jeff.
Right. Hey, man, I'm not a Cowboys fan, but I will stick up a little bit for them. If Miami is one of the better teams in the AFC, per se, then Dallas losing to them isn't a huge deal. I know the timing's terrible. It looks terrible. But they're just really hurting with the running game. I mean, Tony Pollard couldn't get the ball over the line. That changes probably the outcome of the game, that right there at the goal line and stuff. I just feel like Dallas is real close to
But Jeff, they've been real close for 20 years. And you know this. Right. If they have to go into San Francisco and they have to go play the 49ers, they got no shot.
More than likely, you're right, Zach. I'm just saying, I wouldn't be so surprised if Dallas is in that championship game, though, to be honest with you. I just wouldn't be surprised at all.
Yeah, well, if they do, we will give them a little golf clap here, and great to hear from you, Jeff. And we'll say, okay, great. The Cowboys finally got to an NFC championship game for the first time since 1995, so I don't have to keep on repeating that, but they won't be getting to the Super Bowl. I trust that team for maybe one game, but I can't trust them for 2 games or 3 games. And without having the number 1 overall seed and without having home field advantage, they're going to have to go on the road in all likelihood for 3 games in the playoffs to get to the Super Bowl. And it's not just Dak. It's not just Mike McCarthy. It's not just the defense, right? It's all of those things. And 2 weeks ago, they no-showed up against Buffalo, coming off a big win against Philly. Then this past week on Sunday, the offense showed up, and then when they had the game in their advantage and they needed a defense to stop, then their defense let them down. And it's been the same thing. When the defense plays great, like we saw last year in the playoffs against the 49ers, the offense let them down. And then up against Miami, the offense did their job, and then the defense let them down. And I just continue to see this team coming up short when it matters the most.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All right, away we go. Hour number 2 of our radio program. That's right. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. The Chiefs lost yesterday to the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm stunned. And I've been someone for the last few weeks that have been telling you the Chiefs are not a dangerous team this year. They're just dangerous in the eyes of everybody because of who their quarterback is, and we all know how great their quarterback is. But this Chiefs team, they are reminding me like a football team from a few years ago. And that football team are the 2019 New England Patriots, who had a good record. They won 12 games, and then come playoff time, they lost the first game of the playoffs with Tom Brady to Tennessee, when Mike Vrabel walked in and ended up being the final game of Tom Brady's career in a Patriots uniform, because the year after that, Brady went into free agency and he joined the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But that team got off to a really good start in the Patriots. Then they showed you some signs of weakness down the stretch. You knew there was no one really on the offensive side of the ball that intimidated you, because Julian Edelman wasn't 100%. He was hurt. Their offensive line was extremely problematic. And then the other wide receivers were like, who? Remember, that was a year where they had Antonio Brown for the first 2 games of the season, and then there was a lot that happened with Antonio Brown, and the Patriots had to get rid of Antonio Brown. So you could see that team in New England, and it's similar to the way that most people are going to talk about Kansas City, where when you watch them, you're saying, wow, that's not really a good team. But your eyes and your brain then says to you, wait, but they have Patrick Mahomes. They have Travis Kelce. They have Andy Reid. So they're always going to have a shot. And Kansas City, even though I don't trust them, as long as they have 15, they could beat any team in the NFL. But just because you can do something doesn't mean you will do something. And even in a year where it's open, football is still up for the taking, and we don't have a lot of clarity because whenever we fall in love with the team, they lose. Look, everyone fell in love with the 49ers, and they lost to the Baltimore Ravens. And watch, now everyone's going to fall in love with the Baltimore Ravens. Would it shock anyone if Miami walked into Baltimore this weekend and beat Baltimore? It wouldn't. And I absolutely love what the Baltimore Ravens have done from start to finish so far this season. But I see Kansas City, and there's just more and more signs by the way that they play that, yes, a year ago, we had a similar conversation where it's, oh, Kansas City's vulnerable. Kansas City's not as good as they once were. Kansas City misses Tyreek Hill, and they still found a way to win playoff games, 2 of them, get to the Super Bowl, be down by 10 at halftime, and then come on back, beat the Eagles, and you had another Lombardi trophy going to Kansas City. But that is extremely tough to replicate in back-to-back years when there are similar problems from what you had last year, and everyone got a year older, and it seems like their lack of talent on offense has become a bigger issue. And a big key to them is getting Isaiah Pacheco back. And you saw him get a touchdown yesterday. Because outside of Kelsey, and Kelsey, he is not having a great season. There is some sign of decline with Travis Kelsey, and still, Travis Kelsey is one of the better tight ends in the NFL. But you saw him drop a football the other day, and they went back and they did the same play on a screen pass. It didn't make any sense, and there's been some big drops with Travis Kelsey. But when you still have a good player in Kelsey with a great player in Mahomes, you need another spark. And Pacheco is probably their most intimidating offensive player outside of 15 and 87. And he came back yesterday, ran some wildcat play, and then got hurt. And really, the Chiefs season was kind of summarized in one video. And it was Isaiah Pacheco going to the bench to get checked out. He goes on the medical, inside the medical tent, and they didn't get the tent up yet, and he's on a table, and he fell right through the table. Even the tables aren't working in Kansas City right now. And it's a problem. And you see a spell being casted on this team. And I've seen this before, where they give me a new producer, and it's a new dog, but it's the same old tricks. Because I saw this with my last producer in Hot Take Hickey, where any team he would touch, they would turn to crap. They would turn to garbage. And Santer leaves one crappy team in the Jets, and he gets on board the Kansas City Chiefs bandwagon, and they don't have a prayer to get to the Super Bowl this year. Santer, you are the one to blame. We are lucky we don't have to go to Kansas City this year. I love my time going there to the draft. But if we had to go back there for the draft this year, whenever the Chiefs lose in the playoffs, let's say divisional round weekend or conference championship weekend, whatever it is, you would be public enemy number one. Now, actually, some people may say it's Taylor Swift these days, because I lived a similar fight. When Tom Brady first having a little bam chicka wham time with Gisele Bundchen, the Patriots stopped winning. Now, all of a sudden, Taylor Swift, and this is not an anti-Taylor Swift take. I like Taylor Swift. I don't want the Swifties coming after me. But there are some people saying, ever since Taylor Swift's having a little bam chicka wham time with their tight end and Travis Kelsey, maybe his priorities are lined up in a different place, and now Kansas City is going to go through their period of not winning games. So I'm looking at this, and I'm not blaming Taylor, because I don't want the Swifties coming after me. I'm blaming you. You look like you just robbed a bank with how you're dressed up today with that hat. You're robbing the Chiefs of more Super Bowls because you elected to go join that team and be a part of that fan base.
I mean, you can say what you want. We still haven't even hit the playoffs. And
they lost to the Raiders.
If you had to ask me who I trust more in the postseason, Patrick Mahomes and that offense or Lamar Jackson, I'm taking Patrick Mahomes every day of the week and twice on Sundays. Just Wait till you see what happens, right?
Okay.
The Ravens will clinch the 1 seed. They'll get to the AFC Championship game. The Chiefs will roll into Baltimore. Patrick Mahomes will throw for 300 yards. Lamar Jackson will be down in the fourth quarter. He won't be able to bring the team back with his arm, and the Chiefs are going to go back to the Super Bowl. This is what happens every single time. It's what happened against the Titans. It's what happened against every time Lamar Jackson gets to the playoffs. He looks great in the regular season. He's like Peyton Manning, except without as good of an arm, without as good of a passing game. He's going to get to the playoffs. He's going to go down early against some team, and he won't be able to come back. And Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are going to do what they do every single year.
Wait. But even if you're right that the Ravens come up short, why should we then still trust that Kansas City's going to be better than everybody else? That defense, which I gave a lot of praise to early in the season, they're not starting to look too hot. They're making these mistakes that we've never seen them made before. 2 touchdowns in 7 seconds, a pick 6, and then you had the other touchdown as well. And this has been a disaster. And this offense right now sucks. This is not a good offense. And you see the look on Patrick Mahomes' face. Other years, like last year, he never looked frustrated. This year, he looks frustrated. This team was 7-3. Actually, 7-2. Then they lost to Philadelphia. They were 7-3. They played a crappy first half against the Raiders. Then they came alive in the second half. They got to 8-3. They lost to Green Bay. They lost to Buffalo. Then they beat the Patriots. Oh, gee, golly. What a win against the Patriots.
Yeah, the Pats just won this week.
Okay, against a fraudulent Broncos team.
There goes
with
Caleb
the coach
Williams. Sorry, buddy. There goes Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I'm not happy with that. But you were going up against the Broncos, who have a coach and a quarterback who don't like one another. And they're both getting paid a lot of money, and a lot of draft picks were given up by the Denver Broncos to get that coach and the quarterback. And then you go up against the Raiders with Aiden O'Connell. And you lose that game. That is now 1, 2, 3, 4 losses since November 20th. The Chiefs don't get 6 losses in a season.
Everybody goes through ups and downs in their season.
This is a big down. This is not just up and down, little seesaw ride.
4
1 week
games.
off.
It's fine. They're the defending champions.
Games.
They've won twice in 4 years. Mm-hmm. They're fine.
Okay.
All right, they're going through a down period, just like the Eagles are going through a down period, just like the Bills look hot right now, and they're going to fall flat in the playoffs like they always do, like Lamar Jackson always does. It's the NFL. Like, the regular season is what the regular season is. Come playoff time, single elimination.
This ain't the NBA, my friend.
It's going to be Chiefs and 49ers. We all know it. It's not even a question
we
at this
don't,
point.
because you know who you sound like? You sound like me in 2019. Oh, we see this song and dance all the time with Tom Brady.
That's a terrible, terrible insult. Please never compare me to you again.
You should be honored to be compared to me. I'm sorry. Whose show are you on? I don't want to be that jerk, but what does this screen say behind me? What's the name of the show?
My vision is a little bit hazy after all the food from this weekend.
It
says something like
Carlos,
Samter something.
Carlos, I know you have 2 working eyes. Well, what does this say right behind me?
Zach Gelb Show.
Oh, that's right. Don't come into my house and don't urinate on my carpeting. Don't be a bad dog.
I will say this: I'm in charge of cutting up all the tape and all the clips for the show. So it's kind of like don't piss off the server at the restaurant. Don't piss off the guy who's going to put out all the social media stuff for
you. That's fine. You want to do something wrong and do something dirty to my food? I'll get the last laugh on this one. That's okay, Samter. Don't you worry. You hit low, I'll hit lower. Don't you worry. And it's tougher to get lower than you.
About to say, you can't get much lower than me at this point.
I am flexible.
If we're going to go into a down-low competition, you're already starting from a far back position.
I started from the bottom. Now I'm here. And I'm not going anywhere. But I'm telling you, there's too many signs, and there's too many signs of dysfunction with this Kansas City Chiefs team, even in an open year of the AFC, for me to blindly trust them. And you are blindly, and I mean blindly, trusting this football team. And in a lot of other years, your argument would have merit because they deserve the benefit of the doubt. But we are now talking about a full month, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games where this team has been 2-4. Those are signs that this is not going to be a super year for the Kansas City Chiefs. Also, a team that I also have a lot of respect for, the Philadelphia Eagles. There are signs that this team is screwed. They're 11-4. Like, it's one thing when the Chiefs are 9-6 to criticize them, but when you're 11-4, it's tough to criticize a team, especially a team that should get the benefit of the doubt because they were one of the more dominant teams, if not the most dominant team in football last year. And that football team has a lot of good experience. But in the last week, we have heard reports about concern about Jalen Hurts and his leadership skills. We have also, in a win yesterday, and I know it wasn't a pretty win, but we saw Devontae Smith, who's one of my favorite football players ever. I loved him at Alabama. He was visibly upset on the sideline yesterday. We also saw Hassan Reddick, who I knew before anyone knew about Hassan Reddick when he was a walk-on. I saw him practice at Temple University. Heck, I got the guy his first autograph deal. He was in my car about 3-4 months before he was getting drafted. Hassan Reddick looked upset with the coaching staff. Something's going on in Philadelphia, and I think we hit the nail on the head last week when we brought on Ike Reese, where last year they were 1-1. Last year they had elite team chemistry. It seems like there is something more. I don't know what it is. I'm not going to speculate, but it seems like there's something more going on behind the scenes because let's just say you want to take the Samter approach, where a team gets the benefit of the doubt. The regular season's really irrelevant, which is tough to do in the NFL, and they'll just turn it on come playoff time. That's like an approach you could take. But Philadelphia is clearly showing you and talking and giving you signs that something isn't right this year. And I don't know what changed because I was in that locker room at times last year. That locker room, it was amazing to see from veterans to rookies, how everyone was just coming together and they were elite with team chemistry. And now at 11-4, with still everything in front of you, this team looks lost. Here is Devontae Smith after the game talking to the media. Just listen up because he was one of the players that was clearly irate after the game on the sideline.
11 wins, we're not playing good football right now. As an offense, we're not where we want to be. So, I mean, I'm not satisfied. Yeah, we got 11 wins. I'm not happy. It needs to be better for what I want to do, what everybody else in here wants to do, where we want to be. We're nowhere near that, so no, I'm not happy.
Is that kind of the sense you get from a lot of your offensive teammates?
I think that's pretty much anybody in here, man. They'll probably tell you the same thing. We know what we can be, and we know we're not there yet, and we have a lot to do.
And also in that Jeff McClain article, it said they were one of the worst 10-1 teams, right? People felt that way, that they were one of the worst 10-1 teams, and there were so many issues, and one of the unhappiest was the exact phrase, 10-1 teams that they've ever seen. Since then, they are 11-4. They got blown out by the Niners. They got blown out by the Cowboys. They allowed Drew Lock to go 92 yards down the field in the final 90 seconds. And then yesterday, they beat the Giants, but the Giants stink. Like you went from Tommy Cutlets to Tyrod Taylor. That's just a bad football team. This Eagles team, and I usually give them the benefit of the doubt, right? I have a lot of ties to Philadelphia, going to Temple, living there for 8 years of my life. Like I love Philadelphia, but I don't trust this team. And some of the whispers that people were saying when they were 8-1, 9-1, 10-1, it's playing out right in front of our eyes that even in what feels like a wide open year in the NFL, I don't trust this team to come together as one in the final few weeks of the season.
Do you think this is more of a Sirianni issue, a Jalen Hurts issue, or is this a deeper thing than just Sirianni and Hurts?
It's almost inconceivable to me with how much Jalen Hurts.
Inconceivable?
Yeah, it's inconceivable to me. Why, you've never heard that word before?
No, you've never seen The Princess Bride before?
Oh.
Yeah, you missed that reference. I got it right away.
Sorry.
Inconceivable. I don't think that word means what you think it means.
I do not have a kid, not that I know of. And then also...
But you never watched it as a kid? I've seen that movie about...
What movie?
The Princess Bride?
No.
You've never seen The Princess Bride?
No. Never seen Princess
That's
Bride.
A mistake. Now, at this point in your life, if you watch it, you're not going to appreciate it. You have to watch it when you're younger. Yeah. But it is one of the 5 greatest movies ever made.
My favorite children's movie
It's not a children's movie.
What do you mean it's not a children's movie?
It's great if you're younger, but it's not a children's movie.
What is it rated?
I think it's PG-13.
Okay.
It might be R because there's killing.
I don't think The Princess Bride is rated R. Now, I know nothing about the movie, but just based off the name, it's tough for me to imagine that's a rated R movie. But my favorite children's movie is Mulan. I'm a big fan of Mulan. Let's get down to business to defeat the Huns. Ha! It's amazing, amazing movie. But to answer your question, it's inconceivable to me with the way that these teammates talked about Jalen Hurts last year, that Jalen Hurts is the main problem. Like, can he improve some leadership things? Absolutely. So maybe it is more of a Sirianni problem. And Sirianni was one of those like wild card hires because we didn't really know much about him. And he's an acquired taste. And that could work. Like, look at what's happening with Dan Campbell and Mike McDaniel. And Sirianni, right, they got off to that slow start. He had that wacky flower speech, and then they made the playoffs. Last year, they got to a Super Bowl. But sometimes when you are a player's coach, and Sirianni is a player's coach, this guy wears the jerseys of his players sometimes to games. Are you a player's coach that when you need to control the room and give it to your players, they respect you? Or are you a player's coach where they just look at you as a doormat and walk all over you? And I don't know the answer to that. But that team has too many veterans, too many guys that have won, and too many guys that have great success in this league for it to look this bad. And that's the alarming part to me, that it seems like there's no control of that locker room. And just a year ago, that was the best team chemistry out of any team in the NFL. And PFF won't tell you any of those stats, right? And it's the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. That wasn't nice. All righty, we will take a break. Samter brought up the Broncos. It's clearer and clearer that Sean Payton and Russell Wilson don't like each other, and they don't seem to be this great match. What's going to be the future of the Broncos? We'll talk about them next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. $45 seconds remaining. $30 seconds remaining. $15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Give us a call right now, 855-212-4CBS.
All righty, welcome back in. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. This is a great movie. Mulan. Phenomenal. Top of the list.
This is one of the more underrated Disney movies of all time.
It's kind of like Lamar Jackson. You know, it doesn't get enough praise. It's great. It's phenomenal. All it does, it wins. And then there's still like idiots that won't give it praise. That's the way that I would perfectly describe it. I'm sure Tony in Toronto is going to call back up. Mulan sucks. I'd rather have 15 other movies than Mulan. I could hear it now coming from Tony in Toronto. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. I'll make a point about the Broncos in just a second, but let me hit up Michael in Las Vegas next up on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Mike, what's happening?
Zach, thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, you got it, Mike. What's cooking?
A couple quick stats. Aiden O'Connell, 4 rushes, -4 yards. Mahomes, 10 rushes, 53 yards. Lamar Jackson, 7 rushes, 43 yards. My question is, are we doing the same thing we did last year? I'm worried about O'Connell. Like, we scored 0 points 2 weeks ago against Minnesota. I thought we could have put Jimmy G in. I thought he would have had a better chance to win that game. That was
you won the game against Kansas City.
Yeah, but he didn't complete a pass the last 3 quarters.
Yeah, that's fine. Michigan, when they went up against Penn State, didn't complete a pass in the second half. They won the game because they ran the ball down their throats and played great defense.
My question, Zach, is Antonio Pierce not making the right decisions? Are we doing – I thought they could have put in Jimmy G against Minnesota. Are we saving him or something again? Like we did
Jimmy
with
G
Carr?
stinks, Mike. Jimmy G should never be the quarterback. I say this as someone that is a Patriot fan. When people wanted – wait, no, Mike, this is how this works. You speak, then I speak. You don't just cut me off after 3 seconds. I'll let you speak. But when people wanted Jimmy G to come back to New England, I said, why? The guy is an average quarterback.
Okay, I'm with you. I just said, Zach, it's not that he doesn't run. He doesn't have the threat of running. I'm talking about Aiden right now. He had one play where he had like 10, 15 yards for a first down, and he threw it into traffic. We don't have the threat of running, so none of the defenders, they don't even care. They don't even come up. They just give them. I want a running quarterback. That's my point.
Okay, so you think Jimmy G is a great alternative who is made of glass?
That particular game, I thought he had a better chance to win. I want Justin Fields.
Okay, we'll see if the Bears end up trading him, Mike. But can you just it's amazing to me how you have a fan of the Raiders, who the Raiders are not a good team. You have this good story with Antonio Pierce. I don't believe in Aiden O'Connell. You guys won the damn game yesterday. You beat the Kansas City Chiefs 20-14. No one in America thought you were winning that game yesterday. Heck, I had an Isaiah Pacheco anytime touchdown and hit. I had the Eagles money line, which I knew was going to hit. I had the Kansas City Chiefs money line. It's going to win me like $150 yesterday. And I should be annoyed that the Raiders won the game because it screwed up my parlay. But you're a Raiders fan, and you don't really have a quarterback, and you want, I guess your point is you wanted to see Jimmy G get a chance a few weeks ago up against the Vikings when they scored no points, but then they scored 60-something points against the Chargers, and now they beat the Chiefs, and we're still bitching about the quarterback? Like, that's an off-season conversation. The only conversation right now about the Raiders should be this. Antonio Pierce deserves that job, and the only way he shouldn't get that job is if Jim Harbaugh wants that job. If Jim Harbaugh says, I want to stay at Michigan or I want to go somewhere else, then Antonio Pierce should be the coach of this team. And this is a guy in Mark Davis, friend of Samter, by the way, where Mark Davis a few years ago could have kept Rich Bisaccia. And I'm not saying Rich Bisaccia should ooh and ah anybody, but he had that team in the playoffs when he took over a dysfunctional situation that was more than just dysfunction with football. And they elected to bring in Josh McDaniels. So learn from your mistakes. I'm not saying Antonio Pierce is the only guy you have to consider. But the only name that I hear right now that I think is realistic, because you know Belichick's not winding up there. So the only other name is Harbaugh. And if the Raiders hire Harbaugh, I think that would be a phenomenal move. But I don't think it's likely. And if he's not the guy, then it has to be Antonio Pierce. But it's not as if Raiders fans the last 20 years have had much to cheer about. So here's my advice to Michael in Las Vegas. Who cares who's playing quarterback? I'm not saying that's your long-term who cares, but for the rest of this year, who cares? And don't criticize Antonio Pierce for just working with what he has. Because what he's working with is the same thing Josh McDaniels had, and Antonio Pierce has been better than Josh McDaniels. But it's, once again, inconceivable to me that a Raider fan doesn't have only positive things to say when they call a national radio show after what did transpire yesterday, defeating Kansas City. Oh, yeah, by the way, without Josh Jacobs. And I know Zamir White goes for 145 yards, but I'm good with having my quarterback having some mobility. I don't need my quarterback to be this run-first quarterback. Like, there's reasons to say why Aiden O'Connell isn't the guy. I don't think anyone actually believes Aiden O'Connell is the guy. But for it to be, he doesn't run the ball, and he was 4 rushing yards yesterday, or 4 carries for -4 yards. I don't even remember where they were in the game. Maybe there were some kneel downs at the end of the game, too, like whatever it was. For us to basically say that that's the reason why you are so upset today, then I don't think you're ever going to be happy as a football fan. Your team is not a good team, and they just beat the Kansas City Chiefs. It's not like your organization has a ton of victories the last 10 years against Kansas City. Enjoy them when they happen. But this offseason, yeah, you have to address the quarterback. You have to find a quarterback. And you also have to not mess up this head coaching hire in this head coaching cycle. Let me ask you this, Samter. Do you think Antonio Pierce should be the next head coach full-time on a permanent basis of the Las Vegas Raiders?
Unless they can get like a grand slam home run. Unless like Bill Belichick, Jim Harbaugh, somebody who I think is like an elite level proven head coach, then yes, I think it should be Antonio Pierce.
And we could just toss out Belichick because Belichick is a McDaniels guy. They just went through the McDaniels experience. I do not think with the options that Belichick will have available that Belichick would consider the Raiders, even though he loved those facilities when he's out there doing joint practices.
You don't think he wants Tom Brady as his owner?
Oh, that would be another thing. But I don't think that's official yet, too. That's always a thing that we think is going to happen, but it hasn't become official yet. Yeah, that's another good point as well. I really do genuinely believe the only other name out there is Jim Harbaugh. And if it's not Jim Harbaugh, then it should be Antonio Pierce, because I don't see a name that has a proven track record or a name that's out there that's a slam dunk better hire right now than Antonio Pierce. And eventually you got to get the quarterback, because a lot of times with coaches, you're only as good as the players that are around you. and they don't have a quarterback on the roster. But to sit here as a Raider fan and go, oh, should we go back to Jimmy G or should we bench? Like, who cares? It doesn't matter who you're playing at quarterback. And Jimmy G is not that dude. He's not the answer. And it was stupid on McDaniel's part to give him the contract that they gave him. And they need to get him on out of there or just have him be fine with holding the clipboard and taking all that money. You got to go get a new quarterback this offseason. All righty, I got to get to the Broncos. I'm concerned about the Broncos. The Broncos have been one of those teams, and it's year one. Year one to me is a wash. But they were really bad. Then they got hot. I was skeptical of them when they were hot, but they kept on winning, and now they're coming back down to earth. And we saw this 2 weeks ago when they got blown out by the Lions, where I'm not saying you have to beat the Lions, you have to have a pulse. But you saw an issue on the sideline between Sean Payton and then also Russell Wilson. And a lot of us looked at that situation and said, there's something to it. And James Palmer made a great point from the NFL Network, where he was on with us. He said, I don't think they love each other, but I think they found a way to work together and be professional. But if you're at that stage already, you're one in the marriage. And that's why I made the joke back to James. It sounds like a couple that just got married and 3 months into their marriage, they're already in couples therapy. Like, it doesn't seem in the honeymoon phase that if you're already in couples therapy, that's going to be a relationship that ends up lasting. And you did see that pop up against the Patriots. The Patriots are a terrible football team. And I say that as a Patriot fan. You are at home, you're at Mile High, and you lose to that team. And I know it's more than just a quarterback and more than just a coach, but I think when you have a performance like that, and you have a game where you lose to the Pats, maybe it's a carryover effect of just awkwardness in that organization where something happened the week before with Sean and Russ, and then it carried over into the next week. Ultimately, they're going to give this a go for another year. It's too much to get rid of Russell Wilson right now, and they gave up too much to get him. But I really do wonder this time next year how we're talking about it. And you know Sean is someone that it's almost his way or the highway, and he's very demanding. I think he has tolerated Russ, and at times Russ has looked like a good quarterback, and he's vastly improved from where he was a year ago. But I think because there's not love in that relationship, eventually, maybe a year from now, Sean's going to look to go get his guy for the future. Because they're not going to get rid of Sean Payton first. They're going to get rid of Russell Wilson first because Russ was already there. And then they basically handed over the franchise to a guy that's won a Super Bowl as a head coach in this league. Let me ask this to Pat Boyle, who is sitting to the left of me. How do you kind of dissect and interpret year one of Sean Payton and Russell Wilson and where you think their relationship is heading towards? Because it was really ugly in the beginning. Then they got hot in the middle. And now down the stretch, when there was actually some expectations, they were fighting on the sideline, or let's call it what it is. Sean was berating Russ on the sideline, and Russ was basically tuning him out and not giving him the reaction back. And then they just lost to the pathetic Patriots. And I'm so annoyed that the Broncos couldn't beat the Patriots because my team goes from picking second in the draft to now to fourth in the draft. And I've been losing all football season. And now my team is playing themselves out of maybe going to get a quarterback or even Marvin Harrison Jr. But forget about my team. Go answer the question about Russ and Sean.
Yeah, I think that sideline interaction 2 weeks ago told you everything about where the relationship is right now. It's broken, and I don't think it'll ever – and this started from when Sean Payton came in and basically put his sword in the ground and said, no, I'm the king. Russell Wilson's not going to be able to have his guys in the building. This is my building. He shows him up on the sideline for, in my opinion, what was Sean Payton's mistake. I think he got mad with Russell Wilson for what? Rushing up to the line of scrimmage. You're the head coach. Call a timeout if you don't like the look of things for whatever reason, if you wanted to challenge or whatever the reason was. And then he shows him up on the sidelines. And, how do you not beat the Patriots at home?
Yeah, it's embarrassing. Bailey Zappi.
Yeah.
Bailey Zappi.
Zappy hour, baby.
Oh, no. We are not happy for Zappi.
I don't think the relationship between Sean Payton and Russell Wilson is ever going to be one that's beneficial for both parties or for the Denver Broncos. And I think...
you have two alphas. You have two alphas who both have egos and both have insecurities. And we know Sean's going to win out over Russ. but there still has to be a level of respect to work together. And I don't think there's a level of respect with Sean to Russ. He respects his game and what he's done in this league, but when you're in his castle, when you're in his building on his turf, it's you do it my way, and I'll tell you what you're doing right, and then I'll definitely tell you what you're doing wrong.
Yeah, let me ask you this. Is Sean Payton going to win the battle between him and Russell Wilson?
Yes, because Russell Wilson got humiliated last year. And Russell Wilson was the punchline of every joke, and there's a lot of people that don't like Russell Wilson.
True, but he has played a lot better, although it's been more game manager style.
But who was his coach when he played better?
That is true.
That's why I think he's going to win that argument, Sean Payton.
You don't think the finances will win the battle ultimately? Russell Wilson, all the guaranteed money, all the money that they owe him still on, 3 more years of his contract?
That's why I think they'll be together next year. They're in couples therapy. We all know a couple that is trending towards a divorce. And you're just waiting for that text. You're just waiting for that breaking news alert. You're just waiting for the gossip to spill on over. And in a year from now, that gossip will spill on over. And you know when it really could get a little bit interesting? In the draft. Remember when, you definitely remember, it's on ancient history. The Eagles had Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
And then out of nowhere in the second round, they drafted Jalen Hurts.
Yep.
Watch the Broncos this year draft a quarterback in the second round, and then bleep will really hit the fan.
I'll just say this. In an AFC West that now looks like it could be the taking as early as next year, with the Chargers headed for a new head coach, and Justin Herbert, as great as a lot of us think he's been a 500 quarterback.
It's still the Chiefs' division, because the Chiefs will go get a wide receiver.
It is still the Chiefs' division for now, but with the Broncos creeping up on them and the Raiders, if they have a quarterback, they're a great team. What is the conversation? Are they looking at cleaning house, the Denver Broncos, maybe after next year, if they go through another season
No.
where they are under 500 and the offense can't get things going?
They will get rid of Russ, and then
Sean Payton will have a chance to coach
Sean
a new
will have
quarterback.
a chance for life without Russell Wilson.
Okay.
I still thought it was a big-time mistake for Sean to take that job with the Broncos. He wanted the Chargers job. But sometimes when you're addicted to coaching, you don't make the smart decision, and he probably should have stayed at Fox for another year, because even though the Broncos have won in the past, I don't think that team is that good. 7 wins right now with this team is actually a pretty damn good coaching job, because there's not a lot on the offensive side of the ball that intimidates me, and defensively, that secondary was terrible in the beginning of the year, but now they started to turn it around a little bit, I guess. The one player I love on that team is Patrick Surtain. Outside of that, there's not a lot that I love with this Broncos team.
Kareem Jackson isn't headhunting every other week and keep himself on the field. You like him in that secondary as well.
But the wide receivers, Cortland Sutton's fine. Jerry Jeudy, I think, is vastly overrated. Javonte Williams has already, unfortunately suffered a big injury. It's just not a lot that I love with that team. Alrighty, Zach Gelb here with you on CBS Sports Radio. Coming back with a news brief. Update time first. Here he is, Pat Boyle.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
All right, Zach, NFL news as we turn our attention to the penultimate week in the regular season, Week 17. It starts with a QB being ruled out for Thursday night's game in Cleveland. Zach Wilson has not cleared concussion protocol. He is out for the Jets on Thursday night against the Browns. Head coach Robert Saleh confirming the news today, so Trevor Siemian will draw his second straight start. Joe Flacco, by the way, coming off another monster performance in Sunday's dominant win against the Texans, was asked about the Jets not giving him a phone call earlier this year when Aaron Rodgers went down with the torn Achilles just 4 snaps into the season. Flacco said, quote, "Is what it is. Happy to be where I am for sure," end quote. Elsewhere, Titans head coach Mike Vrabel spoke today about rookie QB Will Levis's possible availability ahead of their 2 final games. Levis did not play in Sunday's loss to the Seahawks with the right ankle sprain that he suffered last week in the OT loss to the Texans, but Vrabel said that the chance to play the final 2 games of the year would provide invaluable reps for Levis, who has thrown for 8 touchdowns and 4 picks in 8 games this season. Finally, bowl season has resumed today. First of 3 games on the slate is the Quick Lane Bowl in Detroit, and right now, late third quarter, early fourth quarter now, the Minnesota Golden Gophers lead Bowling Green 23-10. I'm Pat Boyle.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
Alrighty, so Aaron Rodgers on the Pat McAfee show, and if you recall last week, he was put on the active roster even though he wasn't going to play this year, and they wanted to keep him on there so he could keep on practicing. Nick Bawden, the fullback, got cut. I believe they brought him back to the practice squad. It stinks for Nick, but then you see who he's married to. I don't think he is going through any real tough times right now. But this is Aaron Rodgers on the Pat McAfee show with the backlash from a player getting cut to make room for him to keep on practicing with the team.
We lost the previous week. I was, again, targeting the 24th to come back. So I assumed I was going to go on IR. I asked to be put on IR because, there was conversation, do you want to practice? And I said, not at the expense of somebody getting cut. I know how this works, and I didn't feel like I needed to practice to continue my rehab. I could do on-the-field stuff on the side, but obviously I got overruled there. It is what it is. And, yeah, that was a, interesting situation. I called Nick right away. I just said, hey, I just hope this isn't coming from me. I asked him to put me on IR. But he actually said, hey, look, I'm vested. I'm getting my money. I'm fine. Don't worry about me.
So even if you believe Rodgers, and I don't pile on Rodgers like a lot of other people do, even if you do believe him that he said to Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas, hey, don't activate me. That's almost as if when you're talking to someone and you know what's going to happen, but you want to look like the good guy and you go, oh, don't do this. No, please don't do it. You don't need to do that, but you know it's going to happen anyway. That's what I kind of look at, where we all know who really runs the Jets organization. It's Aaron Rodgers. And even if, let's say, he went to Saleh and Douglas and said, don't do this, he knew down deep that they still wanted him to be around the team and practicing with the team. Here is Aaron Rodgers on people calling him out for not making it back to return to play for the end of the season.
They're still trying to get their jabs in. They're still trying to take a victory lap that, somehow I couldn't beat science this time. That's it's right. Like, oh, really? I was on the practice field 11 weeks. I was, in line to be able to push to play in after 14 weeks. So take it easy on the victory laps and have another jab while you're at it.
So I guess he's taking a shot. That wasn't intentional. But I guess he's taking a shot at people that got the vaccine, and people were annoyed at him for not getting the vaccine and then lying about it and saying that he was immunized or whatever he said at that press conference. Are there really a contingency of people that are taking a victory lap that Rodgers, in his alternative way of rehabbing, is not back to playing? Like, I guess that's what he's... If that's the case, whoever those people are that are celebrating about him not getting back on the field, like, they're a bunch of losers. Because then this is not a pro or anti-vaccine stance. Like, I got the vaccine. And I think Rodgers saying, oh, go take another jab is, like, insufferable as well. But if you're going to be annoyed with someone for his take on something and then celebrate him not being able to return back because his alternative method didn't work, it's I never thought he was returning to play this year, but it is wild that he was even on the practice field. So a lot of this stuff, it's really insufferable. Like, I hate both sides of it, and it makes me just cringe. Let's go to Robert Saleh on facing his former QB, Joe Flacco. That's going to be the Thursday night game coming up in 2 days, Jets and Browns.
Joe is, I've said it before, he's like a Ford pickup truck. You might not like it in the summer, but in the winter months, December, January, that son of a gun starts humming, and he's playing some really, really, really good football.
You know, it's wild, because as a Patriot fan, right, there was always so much respect for Peyton Manning. Then we always knew Eli Manning beat Tom Brady in a big game, but the quarterback I feared the most through that 20-year run was actually Joe Flacco. Because Joe Flacco... Those Ravens teams were always so tough, and even though they didn't always beat the Patriots, Flacco just went to a different level up against the Patriots. Alrighty, these Suns, no one has talked about them. They've been injured. They're a game below 500. They've now lost 3 in a row. They lost last night to the Mavericks, and they are 14-15 on the season. Here is Kevin Durant. Oh, what a shame, courtesy of ESPN. He's frustrated in Phoenix.
You talk to people in Phoenix and around that organization, they can feel the frustration with Durant. Part of that certainly is the underwhelming supporting cast that comes from those massive trades for Durant and Bradley Beal that really gutted the organization and left them, having to sign a lot of minimum players to fill out the payroll, and then understanding that they lack the assets, the draft picks, the trade capital to go out and really improve this team.
So that was Adrian Wojnarowski talking about how KD is frustrated. I don't care if KD is frustrated. He made his bed. Now he has to lie in it. And what killed KD is when he was in Brooklyn, he picked Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving was the wrong choice. And he can never have an honest conversation with Kyrie that it was him, it being Kyrie and not actually Kevin Durant wanting out of Brooklyn. But now he goes to the Suns, and now he's frustrated in Phoenix. This guy's going to be frustrated wherever he goes, and he should have never left the Warriors, but he felt like he had to leave the Warriors because he was annoyed about the criticism that was given to him when he was winning all these championships, winning all these final MVPs, when he embraced the role of a villain, and you should have just kept that role of the villain. Instead, he felt like he had to leave, and now Charles Barkley is probably right. Even though KD is an all-time great player, some guys are just better when they are the bus rider rather than the bus driver. And finally, here's Devin Booker calls out his teammates' effort.
Doncic with the steal. Booker giving chase. And Luka gets the lane.
Aren't you running back? You just turn the ball over and don't run back?
So there you go. That encapsulates really all the problems with the Suns. You have Doris Burke on the call, and then you hear a hot mic pick up. You're going to miss a shot and you don't run back? Oh, man. What a shame. What a shame with the Suns. Seems like the sun is setting really early with the Phoenix Suns this year. Jeez Louise, that's a disaster. And it just shows you right now, nobody really cares about the NBA regular season because that team is polarizing. That team went out. They got stars, right? They got Bradley Beal. I know he's been hurt. You have Kevin Durant. Devin Booker, someone that is very easy to root for. But they are right now the 11th seed. They would even be in the play-in tournament right now. And they're 14 and 15. They'll eventually turn around. They'll make the playoffs. But, man, I have not heard a pin drop about them until I saw this Woj thing from the other day. Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio, 2 hours in the books. We're coming on back, one more hour to play. When we do return, two teams that are usually losers are now two of the better stories in the NFL. We talk about their great times next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
All right, away we go. Hour number 3 of our radio program. That's right. It is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. Qadry Ismail is going to join us coming up 20 minutes from now to talk about the Baltimore Ravens and what they did last night up against the San Francisco 49ers. We are streaming on YouTube, as always, youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio. And you can always interact with the show, 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. When we take a look around the NFL, you have two teams that have been known for years as being losers. And that's the Cleveland Browns and then also the Detroit Lions. What the Cleveland Browns and Detroit Lions have done this year is absolutely remarkable. You take a glance at the Cleveland Browns, they have had injury after injury after injury, where we have seen them lose their quarterback, Deshaun Watson, for the season. We have seen them lose their running back in Nick Chubb and have dealt with a bunch of injuries on both sides of the ball. But this team still finds a way to just win. And the Cleveland Browns, in all likelihood, are going to be going to the playoffs. And anyone before the start of the season that said Kevin Stefanski is on the hot seat, you have nothing to say anymore. Like, he was on the hot seat. That's not me going after you. And that's not me saying, oh, you were wrong for saying that. But next year, when Deshaun Watson comes back, if he has any problems with Kevin Stefanski, it ain't a Kevin Stefanski problem. That's a you problem, Deshaun Watson. Because this is a guy in Kevin Stefanski that has won one Coach of the Year award before, and he could be winning the Coach of the Year award this year. Right? Colts lost last week. Texans lost last week. And here you have the Cleveland Browns coming off another win up against the Texans, and Joe Flacco, cool Joe, elite Joe, came off the couch, and now he's just punching it in the mouth over and over again. I can't believe this with Joe Flacco. Here we go, Brownies. Here we go. Hoo, hoo. The Cleveland Browns are an enjoyable football team. And Amari Cooper, what was it, 230-something yards? I may have shortchanged him a little bit. But that's a Browns individual game record. Amari Cooper was on Ion Football 2 weeks ago after he had a great 75-yard run for a touchdown, and he was like, no, it was all Joe Flacco, where Joe Flacco thread the needle in between 3 defenders. 265 yards for Amari Cooper on 11 receptions and 2 touchdowns. And how about the career year for David Njoku? The dude nearly burnt his face off, and now he's back, and he has a career high in receiving yards, receptions, and also touchdowns. The Browns are 10-5, and they're one of those teams where you say, how the heck are they 10-5? How the heck is this team 10-5 when all throughout the year they have just been decimated by injuries? Like, if the Browns didn't have a good record this year, I think we could all look back and say, oh, well, it's because they got hurt. But this has been a group where their wins this year, they beat Cincinnati, they beat Tennessee, they beat the 49ers, they beat the Colts, they beat the Cardinals, they beat the Baltimore Ravens, a great comeback victory. They beat the Steelers, they beat the Jaguars, they beat the Bears, they beat the Texans. And they got 2 games left this season, the Jets and the Bengals. The Bengals, who also lost their quarterback, now they're without Jamar Chase, and let's just call it for what it is. The Jets are the Jets. The Cleveland Browns, they're going to be 12-5. Think about that. The Cleveland Browns are going to be 12-5 at the end of the regular season, and they are playing with Joe Flacco, and they don't have Nick Chubb. This is a remarkable, and I'll say it again, a remarkable coaching job by Kevin Stefanski. And there's a lot of times in football season, because I like to listen into our local markets, and I like to listen into our Odyssey stations because I'm a company guy. And one show I thoroughly enjoy is the Ken Carman Show with Anthony Lima. And I know both of those two very well. And there have been so many times throughout this year where there have been passionate fans of the Dog Pound that have called into that show and have berated Kevin Stefanski and have called for Kevin Stefanski to be fired. And they have said, this dude is not the dude to leave the Cleveland Browns. Think about what Kevin Stefanski has done in Cleveland. They got to the playoffs, and I know he had COVID, but they won a playoff game in Pittsburgh. And now, having to deal with everything about Deshaun Watson last year, and that's more on the owners of the team, the Haslam family, than it is him. And then Deshaun finally played a decent game, and then he gets hurt. And they've been able to call Joe Flacco off the street, and they've already won double-digit games. And there's 2 games left in the season. And this team is definitely going to be a playoff team. And now the conversation with the Cleveland Browns. Are the Browns a contender? Like, I don't expect the Browns to go to the Super Bowl this year. So I'm not ready to go there yet. But they did beat the Ravens. Like, I look at Cleveland. They are a team. This is the way that you describe Cleveland. You do not want to face them. Because Joe Flacco has nothing to lose. This is the last rodeo for elite Joe Flacco. And that defense is still damn good. And on offense, they have maybe one of the more underappreciated offensive players in the NFL for the last 10 years, Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper was really damn good with the Raiders, was really damn good with the Cowboys. He was made available. And what, he got traded for like a 6th-round pick or whatever it was? Or a 4th and a 5th, like whatever. It was nothing for a guy of his talent. And Amari Cooper, by the way, became the first Cleveland Browns wide receiver this past weekend to have back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. This story is just great. And you know why I love this story? Because a team that's usually a bunch of losers are now turning into winners. And you got to give credit to Kevin Stefanski. I don't have a team this year. Well, like, I root for a team, but my team stinks. So I don't have a team for the playoffs. But I'm looking at this right now. Outside of the Detroit Lions, which we'll get to in just a second, is there a team that you'll be rooting harder for in the playoffs than the Cleveland Browns? The Browns right now have the third best record. They wouldn't be the third seed because the Ravens right now would win the division. But they have the third best record in the AFC. The Ravens are 12-3. The Dolphins are 11-4. And then here are the Cleveland Browns at 10-5. Teams that are behind, teams that are looking up at Cleveland right now. Patrick Mahomes' Kansas City Chiefs. Josh Allen's Buffalo Bills. Trevor Lawrence's Jacksonville Jaguars. The Colts, the Texans, the Steelers, the Bengals, and many other. Santer, I'll ask you this. You've seen a lot of good stories. Is there a better story in the NFL right now than the Cleveland Browns and what the Cleveland Browns, here we go, Brownies, here we go, hoo, hoo. And I said, here we go again. It's the Cleveland Browns and it's 1st and 10. Is there a better story than the Cleveland Browns as I try to be William Hung on American Idol? She bangs, she bangs. What's the best story in the NFL right now?
It's not the Browns. And here's the thing about the Browns.
Woof, woof.
Here's the thing about the Browns. Any team that has Deshaun Watson.
But they don't have him right now. He's hurt.
Right. So that's kind of the caveat. But, like, he was there for long enough during the season that he won some games and he was still there.
He really did nothing.
But it's still the franchise that gave this guy guaranteed money despite all the stuff. So, like, they're villains to start with. Now, listen, if you want to say, like...
No one hates the Browns right now.
And, like, Myles Garrett hit a guy with a helmet a few years ago.
Yeah, but everyone's forgot about that because the guy's a dog on the
But what I'm saying is the Browns are still villains. I guess we're happy.
You think the Browns are a villainous team right now?
Yes, because they have Deshaun
With Joe Flacco? But they don't. The guy's hurt.
It doesn't matter. He's still.
It does.
It's the franchise, right? The team you can maybe root for. You can root for Flacco. Flacco's the guy you can root for, I guess. But for the most part, like I don't root for the Browns because I just look at that franchise and the ownership and the team and what they did and who they brought in and how much they paid them. It's just they gross me out. So no, I don't think the Browns are the best story. I don't even think they're a top 3 or 4 story in the NFL. The best story in the NFL.
That's crazy.
The best story in the NFL by far is the Houston Texans. All right, we thought that they were going to have
who the Browns just beat.
I'm not saying they're the best team. They're the best story. Right? The Browns, we thought were going to make the playoffs with or without Deshaun Watson. We knew the Browns were good. We knew they had a great defense, right? The difference was we thought the Houston Texans might be the first overall pick back-to-back years or, top 2 picks back-to-back years. And now C.J. Stroud looks like he might be the next Patrick Mahomes. The next best story...
No, let's pump the brakes there. C.J. Stroud playing well. He's been hurt the last few weeks.
Yeah, you know what I mean. I'm just saying he's the next guy. He's the guy. He's a guy. Right? The next best story, even though the expectations were high, are the Detroit Lions because they're the Detroit Lions.
But real quickly, I don't even know in the AFC South if the Texans are the best story. And that's not me taking a shot at the Texans. The Texans are a phenomenal story, but the Colts are just as good of a story.
Because Gardner, you talk about guys who are easy to root for. I love Joe Flacco, but he's been there before. Gardner Minshew is easy to root for.
And Jonathan Taylor's been banged up for most of the season,
100%. So, like... For me, I think the Texans and the Lions are the 2 biggest stories. They're the 2 biggest, best stories of the year. The most just emotional and
But the Texans got to make the playoffs. I'm not saying that we would look at the Texans as this bad story, but for them to really get the play of the best story of the year, they got to make the playoffs.
Right, but right now, as we stand at 8-7, and listen, they lost, but at 8-7, to me,
just for the outside looking,
they're the best or the second best story. The Lions, to me, are an easy top 2, whether they're 1 or 2 with the Texans, interchangeable. Because even though we had the expectations, it's still the Lions, first division in 30 years, right? The difference is the Browns. Baker Mayfield got them back to the playoffs a couple years ago.
They did.
If this team had still been playoff-less, had still been crappy for years, and never had that glimmer of hope, that 1 year of up, and this was the one, and it's Joe Flacco, maybe a different story. But we've seen them kind of getting back up there. They've kind of been at the middle for a little bit. They've kind of had their opportunities for a little bit. And just for me, I can't root in any way, shape, or form for any team that has Deshaun Watson on their roster.
I think your point could have some validity on the Watson front if Watson was playing. But Watson, to me, is now out of sight, out of mind. And also, I'm not defending what Deshaun Watson did. I do not think the Browns should have traded for Deshaun Watson. I don't think they should have gave him that guaranteed contract. But there's a lot of guys around the NFL that I could say they did this thing that's horrible and this thing that's horrible. And we just know when you win games, whether this is right or wrong, people cheer for the touchdowns on the field, not necessarily the person that's scoring them. It's just because their team is scoring. But with Watson not playing for the Browns right now, it actually makes the Browns a team where I don't think you're even thinking about I didn't even think about that part of it until you just brought it up with Cleveland.
See, I can't get that out of my head. I can't think of the Cleveland Browns with him on the field or not. The Cleveland Browns are still the team that traded for Deshaun Watson, gave him a ridiculously guaranteed contract, and put him on their roster and defended him, despite him having showing no remorse and showing no apology whatsoever. Another better story.
But hold on. But let's be real. It wasn't like they were the only team going after him. There were a lot of other teams that are going for him because of his talent. They're the only team that would have given him $230 million guaranteed. No other team was doing that. Yeah, but there were other teams that were interested. The Panthers were interested. The Falcons were interested.
Sure, and if the Panthers traded for him and gave him a monster deal, I would feel the same way about the Panthers. But right now, they're the team who did it.
All right.
So I'm not going with the
I don't want to.
Another better story is also the Las Vegas Raiders.
Wait. The Raiders?
The Raiders, absolutely.
Stop. We're going to reel this back in. The Raiders, Antonio Pierce, outside of Jim Harbaugh, should be their coach next year. The Raiders are not a top 5 great story of the NFL.
Fantastic story.
They're 7-8. I get it, they just beat the Chiefs, but let's pump the brakes. The Lions are the one that I'll give you a lot of credit for. The Lions being 11-4, and they almost lost that game. They had to see it flashed right in front of their eyes, and they find a way to hold on to the lead when they were about to crumble with Nick Mullins of all people, and a great catch by Justin Jefferson too. The Lions are a sensational story because that's a fan base that they're always synonymous with having Barry Sanders, one of the greatest players of all time, and not finding a way to win it with one of the more electrifying players that we've ever seen in the NFL. And now they've won their first division championship since 1993. It wasn't even the NFC North the last time they won a division championship. It was the NFC Central. And they are going to get a home playoff game with the opportunity to see a first playoff victory since 1991. The Lions, I give you right now, are the best story in the NFL. But after that, it's got to be Cleveland. And I know you could talk about the whole Watson thing, but forget about Watson because he's not playing right now. Joe Flacco. No one would have ever thought for a second that Joe Flacco would be playing and be playing at a high level, winning games, and could potentially make Cleveland a tough out come playoff time. We got to take a break. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. When we do return, let's get to Qadry Ismail. We all know the missile, Qadry Ismail, and how much he loves the Baltimore Ravens. I wanted to bring Q on today after the Ravens walked into Santa Clara and maybe had the victory of the season with the way that they dominated the San Francisco 49ers. Qadry Ismail still to come. And also, we got to get to overreaction, proper reaction coming up at 5:40 p.m. Eastern. 2:40 p.m. Pacific, and there's still one player we got to talk about. One player that's been underwhelming in the NFL, and for some reason, a lot of people aren't talking about him. We'll get to that. Still got 40 minutes left. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, rocking and rolling. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Let's welcome in a Super Bowl champion, former Ravens wide receiver, Qadry Ismail. And right now, you can check him out as the co-host of Purple Pregame and Postgame on WJZ-TV in Baltimore. Q, always appreciate the time. How you been, my friend? Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. I'm doing well, bro.
Well, let me start you off with your Ravens last night. What a wonderful performance that is. And you know what I'm the happiest for and who I'm happiest for? It's actually Lamar Jackson. Because today is one of those days where no one could actually say anything negative about Lamar Jackson. And if they do, they're just simply a hater, Q.
You're right. I think when you look at the circumstances, the way in which you had the 49ers, their defense, as dominant as it has been, the other side of the football with Brock Purdy and all his weapons around him, and the talk of Brock Purdy being an MVP candidate who's ahead of Lamar Jackson, the way in which Lamar Jackson just overall had to deal with the loss of a Keaton Mitchell, a very explosive, dynamic threat at running back, no longer going to be at his side. Then you also couple in the fact that you had Mark Andrews, his go-to tight end. He was going to be put on IR, or is put on IR, I should say, because of a hip drop tackle in this the Bengals game. It just came about where, yes, he needed to play his absolute best, and I think he did that, and I think he showed many a person that haven't really been following the Ravens that Lamar Jackson is the real deal.
If let's just say this offseason, some team offered him a ridiculous contract and they went to the Ravens and they had that opportunity to match it or not. If they didn't match it, the Ravens would get 2 first-round picks. Do you think there would have been a number where the Ravens, when push came to shove, would have been out on Lamar Jackson as their quarterback?
That's a big one. I think it would have had to have been that Herschel Walker going way back in the day kind of a deal where the Ravens would have given up, they would have given up Lamar Jackson to gain back a lot of draft capital, a lot of first rounders, a lot of opportunity for them to see that they can grow and then somehow convince the fan base that that was the right thing to do. I know Steve Bisciotti would have been tossing and turning to allow EDC to make that decision happen. But we can sit back and talk the conjecture. I think for other teams, general managers, I don't think they quite had the balls to do it because they wanted to play it safe and get drafts their own players or stick with their own free agent guys. But ultimately, as we are now seeing it play out, kudos for the Ravens to getting the deal done and for those other general managers who didn't really see the vision or didn't really understand the full talented nature of Lamar Jackson. Well, they're going to be sitting there on a hot seat wondering if they're going to have a job come this offseason.
Kadri Ismail here with us. Why does Lamar Jackson get so much hate? Like, I felt even before the draft, I've been on this island where he should get a chance to play quarterback. We all know what Bill Polian said. Then he wins the unanimous MVP, and people still question him. I know he was hurt the last 2 years, but it always comes back to, it feels like people go, oh, he hasn't won the Super Bowl. He hasn't won the Super Bowl. And I've seen so many players in this league, quarterbacks that go on to win it, who struggled early on in their careers in the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, what the heck? You could look at, one of the all-time greats and Peyton Manning, my former teammate who, his first few years, he really struggled. But, the belief in him from an organizational standpoint helped him kind of push through all that. And obviously the game slowed down for him and he had a phenomenal Hall of Fame career. I think with Lamar, I just think that he is such an outlier, and because of his skill set and what he brings to the table, you have to have a good vision. You have to have a vision of understanding how to coach him, a vision of understanding how to put the guys around him to allow him to blossom, to allow him to flourish. And there have been other teams that have done that with guys that were similar to him. You had a team like a Philadelphia Eagles squad with the Randall Cunningham era. You had a team in the Atlanta Falcons who, saw something in a special dynamic player in Michael Vick. You saw that with the 49ers when Bill Walsh felt like, hey, I want to bring on a Steve Young to my team. And I think with all those, mobile quarterbacks that have a lot of athleticism but can sling it around, you just got to put them in the right position. You got to allow them to be them, while at the same time getting them to as Steve Young had previously said on a podcast, look, when you are a dynamic runner like Lamar, yeah, you sure have the entire field at your disposal. But at the same time, if you can enhance your play by allowing the play itself to enhance and go through your reads and projections of where to go with the football, then I think that's where you become even more dangerous. And that's where you're going to have a more lasting impact on the league and can have that Hall of Fame type career that obviously Steve Young has had. But that is where I think for Lamar Jackson, if you don't have that vision, then yeah, you're just going to be short-sighted. But if you have that vision, then I think you're gonna love some Lamar Jackson and watch him do his thing.
Kadri Ismail here with us. Going into this one the other night, there was a lot of people saying Brock Purdy or Christian McCaffrey should win the MVP. Now we know the take today is that Lamar Jackson should win it. There's been a big push this year for Tyreek Hill. The Ravens play the Dolphins coming up Sunday at 1 o'clock in Baltimore. Do you think this MVP conversation is over with? Like, you would be shocked if Lamar doesn't end up winning the award at the end of the year, correct?
I think if you look at what, he has, obviously the Dolphins, and, he does what he does. He's going to have a great game. They're going to see why he's such a tremendous player, tremendous athlete, tremendous quarterback, tremendous leader. He is that guy. And at the same time, when you look at what they have, the Steelers at the end of the year, so I think it's just icing on the cake right now. You'd have to be a fool to turn the other way and not give him the MVP.
When we rank Lamar Jackson, like, how many quarterbacks in the NFL, Q, just wondering, that just come to you right off the top of the head that you would rather have than Lamar Jackson?
Why is it always what I would rather have? Like, there is somebody better. All he does is win. I think for the talent that has been around him. Let me put it to you this way: can I trade out other quarterbacks, put them on the teams that he's had, and have them be as successful as Lamar Jackson has been with the talent that has been around him? And I would argue no. You can even look at the struggles of Patrick Mahomes when he doesn't have a fully talented arsenal at his disposal. And you can look at with Josh Allen, and you can see how he has had to do an awful lot, but has come up short as well. So, the mindset of, well, who is better? I get, our dialogue, our back and forth, but man, maybe I do have the purple Kool-Aid that I'm drinking, but I like that number 8. I like what he does, and I think he's more than proven himself as a winner.
Wrapping up with Qadry Ismail, let me get to someone that you know well and someone that had a lot of success in Baltimore, Joe Flacco, now dominating with the Cleveland Browns. How far do you think the Browns can go this year? Because it's wild with all their injuries. They have 10 wins, and there's still 2 weeks left in the regular season.
Yeah, and last I checked, Myles Garrett and company on that defensive front has just been playing phenomenal. I think that's something that is really grossly overlooked. They allow for the offense to just function and flourish. And I think that's something that is really just been tremendous for Joe Flacco. And if you look at his resume, and when he won the Super Bowl with the Ravens, and I was a part of that ride as part of the team's broadcast. But the one thing I will say is that, he has a very competent run game, and he has a dominant receiver in Amari Cooper, very similar to what he had with Anquan Bolden. So there are some pieces there, and Joe is one of those type of quarterbacks where he knows where to go with the football. A very talented quarterback indeed.
Yeah, it's amazing when you look at Amari Cooper. I still feel as if he's underappreciated, and everywhere he's gone, he's had success. He's got to be one of the more underappreciated wide receivers in football.
Absolutely. From day one, I think, I've been a Amari Cooper fan. He just shows up. That's what you want. You just want your guy to show up. And what does that mean? Third down, everybody in the building know you're going to throw it. Don't matter if it's off coverage, press coverage, cloud coverage, whatever kind of coverage you want to cover. I'm about to just blow it up, get open, make the catch, and make you pay. That's all he does. He just shows up. And I think it's a tremendous credit to his talent.
Do you think those are the 2 best teams in the NFL, by the way, Qadry Ismail? What we saw last night, the Ravens and the 49ers, do you think that's what we're going to see in a few weeks in the Super Bowl?
Well, there's a lot of football left. I do know that the 49ers have been balling, and they've gone on the road. They've played well at home. They've mud stomped some NFC opponents. There's a reason why Lamar Jackson is 21 versus the NFC. I think it's just simply, teams don't know what to expect when they see him. Whereas in the AFC, teams are kind of somewhat familiar with what Lamar is all about. let's just take care of, as I'm doing my Lamar Jackson impression, let's take care of this portion of the season. And when we get into January and February and it's playoff time, then we'll go ahead and start worrying about it. I absolutely can see both teams, making it to the Super Bowl, but we also recognize that second season, that playoff season, mother of pearl. I mean, it's a razor thin line between advancing and going home.
He does a great job pre and post on WJZ in Baltimore. He is the Super Bowl champion NFL wide receiver, Qadry Ismail. Q, appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much. Be well.
Absolutely. Appreciate you, Zach.
There you go. Qadry Ismail joining us on CBS Sports Radio, 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Before we take a break, come on back, talk a little Trevor Lawrence, also do a little overreaction, proper reaction. Let me just take one phone call here. We go to Todd in Tampa, who's next up on CBS Sports Radio. Todd, appreciate the call. How are you?
I'm doing great, Zach. Let me be real quick because I know you're busy. Your show is hot. It's flying through the day. I just want to say, if the Lions are the number one talk of town, it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield. Okay, we took Goldilocks out. Todd Bowles is bringing pressure because our defense, you can't stop Levante David, Devin White. We had 3 turnovers. We dropped 1, would have been 4 turnovers. The game was over in the first half. It was 20-0, and it was lights out, baby. So before everybody overlooks my Buccaneers, which we got the Saints coming to town this week, and I want to make sure you're on your A game. Todd Bowles, I want to make sure you bring pressure on David Carr and knock him out too, because
Derek,
this Buccaneer team is on fire, and Baker Mayfield is lighting it up, baby.
Thanks so much for the phone call, Todd. I thought at first when he said Buccaneer that we were going to have to press the dump button. I thought I heard an F in there in a word that I can't say on the radio. But Todd in Tampa always brings it about his Bucs, and it's always amazing to me. Todd always thinks the Bucs get slighted. The Bucs are not a top 3 story of the NFL this year, but they are a really good story. And they're a story that maybe doesn't get talked about enough, but let's make sure they go win the division first, and they should. And Devin White had that whole issue last week. Then he bounces back with a great game. Yaya Diaby has been playing some great football, a rookie for them. And Levante David, just one of the consummate professionals in the NFL. But really, when I think of Tampa Bay, I think of 2 things. Baker Mayfield is showing that he belongs in the NFL. I'm not saying he's great, but he's just showing he belongs. And 2, we talk about underappreciated wide receivers, and I bring up Amari Cooper. What about Mike Evans? Like, Mike Evans should be a slam dunk Hall of Famer. He's been in this league for 10 years. He's been over 1,000 yards in every year. I know he just played the last 2-3 years with Brady, but other than that, he's not had a lot of great quarterbacks. And remember, before the year, he was annoyed at the team because they didn't give him a new contract. They would be a bunch of fools if they don't find the way this offseason to get a deal done. And I don't care what his age is. Now, I don't know if he wants to still be there because maybe he thinks he could go somewhere else, but he's already won a Super Bowl. And that's a dude that should be a career Tampa Bay Buccaneer and only be at one place. So we'll see if they get that job done. But I like this Bucs team. I thought Todd Bowles would have been fired at the end of the year. Now he'll probably be back as the head coach, and they need to win that division. Because I know the Falcons are now back in it, and they were my pick before the year, but I don't trust Arthur Smith right now, even coming after a victory. And the Saints, I'm sick and tired of Derek Carr. I did this rant last week, but the woe is me look that's always on Derek Carr's face, I can't stand it. I can't. And if I have to watch Derek Carr in the playoffs and find a way to beat the Cowboys, I wouldn't even be able to enjoy a Cowboys victory or, a Cowboys defeat in the postseason if it comes at the hands of Derek Carr. So, Tampa, do us a favor. Get into the playoffs. All righty, Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio. Come on back, a little overreaction, proper reaction. Update time first. Here is Pat Boyle.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
All right, Zach, starting with NFL QB and injury news. Giants head coach Brian Daboll was non-committal when asked who will start New York's Week 17 game against the Rams on Sunday. It was Tommy DeVito for the last 5 games, but after a lackluster performance against the Saints and then leading the Giants to just 3 points at halftime yesterday against the Eagles, He was benched for Tyrod Taylor, who got the Giants back in the game, ultimately coming up empty on the final play of the 33-25 loss. In Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence's shoulder injury that he suffered in Sunday's loss to Tampa Bay is a sprained AC joint. His status for Sunday's game versus the Panthers is TBD. In Pittsburgh, Mike Tomlin said that Mason Rudolph begins the week as the starter again, but who starts on Sunday versus the Seahawks depends on how Kenny Pickett progresses throughout the week. Pickett has been out since suffering a high ankle sprain in Week 13. Baseball news, the Blue Jays have reportedly signed outfielder Kevin Kiermaier to return to Toronto on a one-year contract worth $10.5 million. Finally, bowl season back on for the final sprint towards this weekend. 3 games on the slate today. The first has just gone final. Minnesota hangs on to finish the season 6-7. They beat Bowling Green 30-24, and Texas State and Rice have just kicked it off in the first Responder Bowl. I'm Pat Boyle.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick from the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Just real quickly, I want to say one thing about Trevor Lawrence, who I know is dealing with a bunch of injuries this year. But just because he's dealing with injuries doesn't give him an excuse about the totality of the Jaguars season this year. Because this Jacksonville Jaguars team, I don't know if there was one person in the national media that was higher on this Jaguars team entering the season than I was. I said with their schedule, with their crappy division, it would not shock me that if they were the number one overall seed in the AFC, not the best team in terms of the team I believe that go to a Super Bowl, but just being the number one overall seed. And I have never given up on a team quicker than Jacksonville, because in week 1, they had to come from behind to beat Indianapolis. All right, you still won. But then in week 2 in Duval, they had a chance to beat Kansas City. And Kansas City only scored 17 points in the game. You hold Kansas City to 17 points, you should win. They only scored 9 points. And that wasn't the only time this year where at home we just saw Jacksonville crumble and the offense just be non-existent. You look at the San Francisco 49ers game. I know you could tell me, oh, well, it's the 49ers, Zach. They scored 3 points against the San Francisco 49ers. And then they had the Ravens. They scored 7 points against the Baltimore Ravens. And this past weekend, they just got dominated by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This was a team that was 6-2. And since their bye week, they're now 8-7. And they have just recently lost 4 games in a row. That's a problem. And even though I think Trevor Lawrence can still be a really good player, it's not just being a really good player. We were told he was going to be a transcendent, generational talent for 3 years. And right now, first year you chalk it up to being on the same team as Urban Meyer and being coached by Urban Meyer. Last year, they took a good step, but now they're regressing. And when you're regressing in this year and you're number 3, it's like, uh-oh. Like, what's going on? And I still think he'd be good. But he's been underwhelming. For a player that's still been solid, he's been underwhelming because the hype was all the way up here. All righty, let's get to a little overreaction, proper reaction. Carlos Ortiz, hit it.
Another NFL week is complete, which means it's another week to freak out about your favorite team. Which takes are truly crazy.
But sometimes a game can be so bad, it's almost good. You know what I'm saying? No.
And which are so crazy, they might be right.
He's 6'5", he's 245 pounds. He's probably a Popeye's biscuit away from being a tight end.
Zach lets you know in this week's edition of Overreaction or Proper Reaction.
And this portion of the show is brought to you by Wesley Financial. Stuck at a timeshare and want out? Contact Wesley Financial Group now and get a free timeshare exit information kit at wesleyfinancialgroup.com. Moist Mike, what do we got cooking?
All right, well, just when we thought we had the AFC North figured out, the Steelers crushed the Red Hot Bengals thanks to a monster game from, believe it or not, Mason Rudolph. Jake Browning threw 3 picks while Rudolph passed for nearly 300 yards and 2 touchdowns as both teams moved to 8-7 overall. Overreaction, proper reaction, you actually have more faith in the Steelers right now than you do the Bengals.
Yes, that is a proper reaction for 2 reasons. The Steelers' defense is dominant, and the other is it's one thing to lose Joe Burrow and look like you could still be competent with Jake Browning, which they were. But then once you lose Jamar Chase as well, the combination of losing both, even though the Steelers don't have many pieces that you could trust on the offensive side of the ball, I would still think the Steelers right now are the better team than the Cincinnati Bengals as we enter the final 2 weeks of the season.
All right, well, you had the Bills as the 3rd best team in the NFL and your favorite to make the Super Bowl out of the AFC.
Mm-hmm.
But Buffalo struggled against the Chargers on Saturday, needing a late field goal to pull out the win. Overreaction, proper reaction. After this game, you're less confident in the Bills in the AFC.
That's an overreaction. They just needed to win that game. You know, it happens when you fire a coach. The team gets a little bit of a boost, especially when they hated the coach in Brandon Staley. I'm not saying that was a good effort by the Buffalo Bills, but they knew they were going to win that game regardless, even though it was really close. I put a future on them 3 weeks ago at plus 1,000 to get to the Super Bowl as long as they get in the dance. I still think they could do that. That number is now down to like plus 600 or plus 550, something like that. So it was a good bet by yours truly. Sure, the Ravens look dominant, and the Ravens are still the team to beat in the AFC, but I'm not less confident in the Bills. I think the Bills are primed and ready to go to make a big run in the postseason.
Now, the Colts were rolling and the Falcons were in a free fall, but this is the NFL. Yeah, right, there you go, Tom Petty. This is the NFL, and of course, Atlanta smoked Indy 29-10 on Sunday. After the game, Gardner Minshew had a warning for his team.
It is a week-to-week league. The wins don't carry over, and neither do losses. I think you start looking at opportunities like this, and you start counting wins, and you start doing schedule math, and you look around. It's like, well, they lost to Carolina. Well, we beat the Steelers. Well, you know what? Like, you got to go earn it right now.
Overreaction, proper reaction. The Colts will miss the playoffs.
So the AFC East will have 2 playoff teams. The AFC North will have 2 playoff teams. So that's 2 wild card spots that are taken up. I still think the Colts have a shot because I don't trust Jacksonville, and I don't know what the health will be of C.J. Stroud moving forward. I expect him to return this week, but I could still see the Colts making the playoffs. So you saying the Colts right now will miss the playoffs, I'll go overreaction there.
All right, now the Bucs took the lead in the NFC South thanks to a convincing 30-12 win over those Jags you were just talking about. Before the game, reports surfaced that Baker Mayfield and the Bucs had mutual interest in keeping the former number 1 overall pick under center in 2024. So overreaction, proper reaction, Baker Mayfield should be the Bucs starting quarterback in 2024.
Proper reaction, but with the caveat. I'm not making a ridiculous long-term commitment. If he realizes this is a good situation and he's fine on playing a shorter deal, I'm good. Maybe you franchise tag him. I don't know if they'll go down that road because maybe they'll franchise tag Mike Evans. But on the right deal, I'm okay with keeping Baker. And I think Baker realizes he's appreciated in Tampa. And he shouldn't, I'm not saying he shouldn't look for a big deal. If someone wants to give it to you, it's fine. But I think he's more than fine being in that Bucs organization. So, yeah, I would go more proper reaction that the Bucs should keep Baker and make him the starter in 2024.
Now, the Commanders nearly made an epic comeback against my former team, the Jets, overcoming a 27-7 deficit to take a late 28-27 lead. But, of course, Washington snatched defeat from the hands of victory, losing on a last-second field goal. The loss dropped the Commanders to 4-11 and good for the 4th overall pick in the draft. Now, overreaction, proper reaction, assuming Washington misses out on Caleb Williams and Drake May, if they do have that 4th pick, they should still draft a quarterback if they have a pick in the top 5.
That's an overreaction. I think Jaden Daniels could be a great pick for them, someone that they should consider. But I don't think you just draft a quarterback for the sake of drafting a quarterback. You have to love the quarterback. So they should still draft a QB with top 5 pick. I would go overreaction, and you just got to see how it plays out in the scouting process. They just like a quarterback. The quarterback's good. Don't take him. You got to be in love with the quarterback.
Now, speaking of the draft, the Bears currently hold the number 1 pick thanks to the Panthers being terrible. But it appears Caleb Williams might not want to play in Chicago after he liked a tweet saying the Bears should actually draft Marvin Harrison Jr. rather than himself, number 1 overall. So overreaction, proper reaction. You see Caleb Williams trying to pull an Elway or an Eli Manning to dictate where he will and won't play.
So can I see him doing it? Trying to, yes. Do I think he will have success? No. I don't know if the Bears are going to draft a quarterback. There's more and more of a case as the weeks do develop for them to keep Justin Fields and trade the pick or draft Marvin Harrison Jr. then trade their other first-round pick. But I don't think he'll have success. But you said he'll try to pull an Elway or an Eli and dictate where he will and won't play. I guess that's a proper reaction. He'll try, but there's a lot of people that try to do things that don't end up accomplishing them. All righty, that is overreaction, proper reaction. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. A very, very, very busy Tuesday edition of the show. We'll be back tomorrow. Jared Gordon from the UFC is going to stop by. He has an incredible story, and he'll tell it to us tomorrow. We got a whole lot more college football playoff preview to do as we inch closer and closer to January 1st, New Year's Day, as we do have Michigan going up against Alabama and the granddaddy of them all, the Rose Bowl. And then we also have Texas going up against Washington, which I think will be a high-scoring affair. Whole lot of NFL news and notes items to get through the rest of the week. Big thanks to each and every one of you for calling, listening, and tweeting the show. Big thanks to Pat Boyle, Carlos with a K, and also Moist Mike. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody, at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. We out. Bye-bye.